All right, good evening. The time being 7 PM. All members of the planning board being present, I call this meeting to order. For everyone in the audience, just as a heads up, agenda item E and agenda item I. E is 2504 Main Street, excuse me, and I is 999 Whipple Road. Both those have requested to be continued to our March 13th meeting. So if you're here for either of those, you need not stay. You're welcome to if you want, but you need not, because nothing will be discussed on those until our next meeting. All right.
How about these two?
Just doing them within, they're not real hearings.
Okay.
Moving on to agenda item A, approval of minutes for our January 23rd, 2023 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item B, committee reports, administrative actions. Do any of the members have any committee reports they wish to make at this time?
All set, Mr. Chairman, for me.
All set?
Mr. Chairman.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Moving on to agenda item B2, town planners report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keeping it short and sweet tonight, first item I wanted to bring up to you folks is I received an email from a resident regarding the status of the Lee House. I attached the email for your reference. I can confirm that the restoration of the Lee House was a condition of the special permit approval for the adjacent development, the Crystal's General Store Plaza. And building permits were issued for the renovations of the Lee House in 2004, and the work has not yet been completed. And just another note that we are holding a $10,000 bond on that project. I don't expect any, action or decisions to come out of it tonight, but I want to bring it to your attention. Maybe we can discuss it at a future meeting to see if there's anything we want to bring to the project owner.
Well, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but we're crawling up on 20 years.
Yes,
I was told it was 2004.
yes.
Right, so we're crawling up on 20 years.
Yeah.
My math was right?
Yeah, I'm confirming your math, sir.
So I think, patience is wearing thin. I think, if several businesses have gone through there or whatnot, and no action on that, it would seem that at some point, if it's not being done on their own, that we're gonna have to bring them in here and push that process along. I mean, if we made, I wasn't here for 2004, but my guess is it wasn't an accident that it got put in there as a condition.
Right.
And it was expected to be completed, and it clearly has not been. I don't know, Mr. Fowler, anything?
Excuse me one moment. Mr. Fowler, could you bring your microphone towards you?
It displeases me when I see that all the time, and I've asked people who know the owner, and they have no idea. But going back 20 years, the plan was nice, plain and simple. They were going to reconstruct the property. They started, and put a couple of additions on the back. They started, and then it stopped. That it is an eyesore, and I'm wondering to Alex, have they ever contacted you about what they're doing?
They have not contacted me. I believe there have been discussions with the building commissioner about the progress and the status of the building permits and whether they are active or not. So I think where we can start is I can reach out to the developer, and ask what their plan of action is and report back to you folks. And, based on that response, we can maybe arrange for them to come into a board meeting in the next month or so.
Very good. All right, thank you.
Just for clarification, the Lee House is on Lee Street?
Correct.
Across from Farmer and D,
Yes.
correct? Just so people know where the Lee House is?
Okay, so I'll take that as an action I'll contact the developer, and we'll see if we can get a path forward. The only other item I wanted to bring up, and I believe some folks already know, the 1775 Andover Street 40B conversion received their project eligibility letter, so that will be coming to the Zoning Board of Appeals in the next couple of months. I've already been in contact with the owners, and they are working in earnest to get a complete package submission ready for the Zoning Board of Appeals, full plans, full drainage, all that good stuff. So we'll start seeing that come online for discussions soon.
All right, good. Thank you.
It's great work too, by the
All
way.
right. Moving on to agenda item B3, that's 1009 Livingston Street. That's going to wait till our next meeting.
Correct.
The same for B4, which is 255 Salem Street / Border Road. We'll deal with both in our administrative actions at our March 13th meeting. Moving on to agenda item C, 171 Cardigan Road, Family Suite Special Permit. Do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
A motion made, do I have a second? Motion made and second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Do we have anybody here for Cardigan Road? It's one of those rare occurrences where Cardigan Road's here for a happy occasion. Nice to see. Floor is yours after you give your names and your address for the record.
Paul O'Keefe, 250 Mitchell G Drive.
Nick Leone, 171 Cardigan Road.
And whatever presentation you have.
Well, we're just looking to build an in-law suite. You have all the info in front of you. His elderly in-laws are looking to move into it. There's a few health issues there, and just make things a lot smoother with them living in the in-law suite.
Okay. So just because everybody won't see what we have in front of us, the square footage for the proposed in-law is,
995, I believe.
and the use would be for?
For my in-laws.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right, I'll move it up to the board. Mr. Fattalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was by the property over the weekend. So the brick building on the right side, is that staying or coming down? The big
That-
brick?
That's staying.
That's staying?
The
Okay, so
building is staying, yeah.
Okay, so we don't have a before or existing, and then, we don't, on our plans, we don't have where the existing building is and where the next part's going, so it's going behind it or to the right of it?
To
I
the
thought
right.
you didn't have floor plans there? Wasn't that?
Just one floor plan?
The
Doesn't
plot
say-
plan only had one copy for the file. It was just the
Oh,
floor
okay.
plans.
I have a full set of plans if you care to see it.
No, that's fine, no, I'm just curious as to where the actual in-law is going, on the
To
right
the
side
right,
of
to the
that?
right side of the property.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and then, so 2 bedrooms, 995 square feet, and, yeah, I don't have no problem with that, I just like the, is there a pool in the back of the house?
Yes.
Okay, I seen the fence, I figured it was a pool, but snow on it, so you couldn't make it out,
Yeah.
but, yeah, that's fine, I have no problem with what you're trying to do, I'm all for, bringing the family together and taking care of them as much as you can, and, I have no problem endorsing the family suite. All set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to ask the usual question. The house is already connected to sewer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I as well don't have any issues at all. It's a good, seems like a pretty good design. I just want to say, is it your in-laws moving in there?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you to their first responder careers, in-law dad, retired state trooper, mama, retired nurse, and thank you for their careers, and I hope they enjoyed their retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll appreciate that. Thank you.
All set, Mr. Duffy?
Yes, thank you,
All right,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Champa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the plan that we have in our packet, it shows the in-law being put in a corner between the deck and the garage. Is the garage the existing garage that I see?
No, it's not existing. It's being built as part of the package.
Okay. So I'm just curious, is the garage part of the 1,000 square feet or 995 square
No,
feet?
just the in-law suite is 995.
Okay. So you have another project going on related to the garage and you have...
Yeah, it'll all go on at the same time, but
Okay.
under one permit.
I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
It looked fine, but I didn't want you to shortchange yourself
No.
on the family suite side of things. And I was just curious, I'm looking at the egress. You have a slider going out onto the existing deck and then another door going into a common vestibule that goes to either the dining area or the garage.
Yes.
Did you get any response or any comments from the building department as far as they're supposed to be? I thought there was a minimum amount of distance you had to have between your two
No,
means
that's
of
all been
egress.
pre-approved. I sat down before we even started the process, and the whole permit package is in his office waiting for the approval here.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the plan, you've done a great job, you've taken care of all your needs. The only thing you have to make sure you can do is your electrician, when he ties in the fire alarm system, that he knows that it's got to be contiguous.
Yep.
All right. And I like the common area between the property. That way they can walk into and join their relatives. In so many cases, years ago, we used to have no communication, no doorway between the family suite and I couldn't understand that. I said, grandmother, grandfather lives over there, they want to go visit. No, well, we beat them up and we won.
Yeah.
But thank you, that's a great job, nice. All set.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. It's easy, once we get through the board. There's nothing more to say on these. You know,
Okay.
we've encouraged them, as long as you meet the requirements, the board is typically all set, and then we just remind you that the rest of it's with the building department, we'll give you the approval, they're the ones who sign off, so.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
With that, I'll open up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns? Going once, twice, bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the public hearing.
All right, motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Motion made and second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the permit itself.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the family suite special permit for 171 Cardigan Road as submitted.
All right, I have a motion made.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you,
Good luck.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item D, which is 623 Main Street, Metro Sign and Awning on behalf of Eco Auto, signed special permit. Have a motion to waive the public reading? So moved. Motion made. Do I have a Second. Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Try to grab another chair.
Motion carries. Once you get settled, if you just give your names for the record, the floor is yours.
Good evening, John Peterson on behalf of Metro Sign and Awning.
Michelle Salas, Eco Auto.
And Al Salas with Eco Autos.
All right, I'll just have you guys pull that mic a little closer to you in case you say anything.
Okay.
And I suspect that the sign guy is the one we're going to be listening to for now.
Correct, yes. So we're looking to propose a wall sign at 623 Main Street. We have the plans in front of you there. So it's going to exceed the square footage which is allowed in that area by 34 square feet, and it will be internally illuminated over there. And, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you have any other questions about the sign itself, materials or anything, I can answer that too.
Okay. All right, we'll open up to the board, then we'll start with Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the plan. The young lady and young man, compared to me, they all are, did a great job. What you said when you came in with the vacant parcel, you made it right. You look very nice.
Thank you.
Proud, and they, as we said before, welcome to Tewksbury.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The only question I have is you're not supposed to have a sign lit at night.
Correct, yeah, I believe it was from, was it
Yeah,
12 to?
okay.
12 to
okay.
6, yeah.
All right,
they
I
got
was
that.
waiting for you to say that, okay.
They are well aware of that, sir.
Okay, very good, okay. So that, you take care of that, and we'll be all set, I'm all set, Mr.
Very
Chair.
good. Mr. Chip?
Just being the rookie here still, until April 1st anyway, the footage of the sign, how is that measured? Is it just measured by the actual area taken up? And does it include sort of the dead space in between the letters? So you draw a boundary around it and that's the sign?
Yes.
So if, right now, basically, I'm generally kind of an anti-waiver person when it comes to these things because, we have bylaws for a reason. They're wrestled out and wrangled and voted on at town meeting and whatnot. We've approved a number of waivers for, any number of overages and whatnot, but you're overshooting by about 50% here, which seems like a lot. Would it be a huge loss to cut back on the drive green, save green? Or, would there be a way to, what would the sign look like if it were to be compliant with the bylaw?
Yeah, we just have to be closer together, would be the main part of it.
Would have to be closer together?
Well, if you put it closer together, yeah, the square footage will come down as opposed to being the 109, which it is, because it won't be labeling in all the dead space too, that's on there.
Okay, so this is including the width between the two parts.
The whole.
It's not two boundaries around the part on the left where it says drive green, save green, and then the other part on the right, we're including the whole facade?
No, it doesn't include the whole facade. It's the square footage of each
thought it had the
sign,
in
but it
between,
includes
too.
all the dead space in between all the letters and above. If some stuff's taller than other stuff, then it's kind of, like you said, draws like a rectangle, all encompassing around everything.
Okay, so we have kind of a big rectangle on one side, a skinny, long rectangle on the other side?
Yes.
So is it possible, so would it be in compliance? I don't have the measurements in our packet. Would it be in compliance if they took out the drive green, save green part?
I mean, that is part of their branding. They would like to keep that with Eco Auto. That goes with their branding.
I'm just curious.
Did you have any other questions while we're waiting for the?
So sorry, doing a little bit of light math. No, so the Eco Auto plus the little green car is also slightly above the 75, the 75 square foot allowed. And just as a note, that it's more, if this building were set further back, this would be allowed. It's that it's within the 100 feet of the street, but it does have a rather large facade too, so it's kind of balancing those two things as well. But the Eco Auto with the car is about 87 square feet.
Okay. I have no more questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the sign is good, perfectly appropriate for the size of the facade. And how far is the building from the street? Do we have any idea on that right now?
Approximately 25 to 30 feet.
Oh, okay. So it's not approaching the 100 feet. But it is Main Street. It's, I mean, it looks like you guys spent some time in design and put some thought into the sign. It's good looking, and I don't have any problem with the waiver myself. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Mr. Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I can see Mr. Chimpa's issue as far as providing the waivers. I'm not a big waiver guy either, because when we give it to you, somebody else comes in and says, well, you gave it to Eco Auto, you know, why can't you give it to us? So, the sign looks good, I mean, as is. I don't know if you made the sign just a little bit smaller in length. Would that have changed a heck of a lot by keeping everything in the same wording?
And if I may, I mean, we're willing to do whatever it takes
Okay.
to work with the town, as we've shown. One of the things that we're trying to bridge through to having the sign and having the drive green, safe green, is that if you drive by on Main Street coming from 495, we own the building, we've driven past it several times. Because it's challenging kind of with the visibility, with the way that it's placed, with the house in the front. So we are trying to just make it safe for people that are driving by to understand that there's a dealership there, that it's not the old abandoned Nissan building. And to your point, as far as the brand, we want to make sure that we are driving that message out and being upfront about it. So that's one of the challenges that we're trying to bridge, is that visibility coming from the road.
Sure, I agree, and I know why you're doing it. I'm looking to help businesses as well thrive, and especially with you guys being brand new to town.
We
You know,
appreciate
but we also have zoning bylaws that we have to look at, and you know, and the members of this board here, either gonna decide yes or no to allow the waiver, you know, but,
And we respect all of the bylaws, as we definitely want to put that foot forward. I just wanted to give a little bit of kind of context of where we're coming from with the sign.
I understand completely. Sometimes I like to blame the Metro sign people, okay? Because
We'll take this one.
with that said, we do have zoning bylaws.
Yes.
So, and it irritates people, sometimes me as well, when we can't come in with a compliant sign that's gonna, you know, be okay for you and okay for us, and it's a win-win for everybody.
So-
But we have to go through the process of allowing you a waiver to get what you want, you know? But like I was saying, if they came in with a sign that was compliant, then we're all good. It's under the compliance, it looks the same, it's just a little smaller, you know? Whether that's gonna make a big difference going forward, you know, I don't have a problem with allowing the waiver, but just the rationale behind some of my thinking as well, as a board member here, and the town's thinking as well, and other people that come in looking for the same thing that we give you. So, but with that said, I'm looking to hope you guys stay there and thrive as well and become a successful business, and I have no problems allowing the waiver.
Okay, so for me, I guess I come down at the end point, the same as everybody else, which is ultimately, I don't have an issue with the sign. You know, you know, we could ask you to shrink the car a little bit, we could ask you to jam the letters together a little bit more, at which point now I start looking at a giant facade to the front of the building that doesn't have anything on it.
Right, that was our,
So to me, you know, I look at it a little bit different in that, you know, the waivers are part of the bylaw. So you are allowed to ask for them. So then it just becomes a question of, what have you presented to us? Is it something that fits? Is it something that looks right? Is it something beneficial? Then decide whether or not the waivers are right. You know, you can ask for it. Then it comes down to what we think you've presented. In this case, I'm looking at a rather large front to the building, and having it blank, I don't see as being productive either to you or to the town through you, meaning your business thriving helps us. So for those reasons, I see a benefit to us. In terms of aesthetics, I think it looks better to have some of the facade with actual signage on it. You know, I've also said that when someone has a logo, you know, if it's legitimately their logo and it's what they're gonna use, then I'm more lenient. If it's, you know, it's not just decoration for decoration. I mean, it's meant to be part of your business. And I know we've talked about it a little bit here, but it's, you know, there's obviously other boards that it touches more, but, you know, we're a green community. It would be sort of semi-hypocritical to make it really hard on a green business like that when they're trying to point out that they're a green business. So that alone would give you a little bump as far as I'm concerned, as far as reasoning for letting you have it. So for those reasons, I'm okay. And I don't mean to be flippant with this question. It's a legitimately, I mean it, but is the sign in any way energy efficient or anything like extra?
So that would be for you, but as far as the building itself, we put LEDs through the entire.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't answer that question right now. I could get the answer to it, but.
It was really just out of curiosity, just
Usually
because it
that-
fits the idea. of that.
Yeah, which is, I couldn't answer that right off the top of my head right now. I'm not too sure if they could make that greenway.
But we have gone through the building and dropped the energy usage for about, I mean, off the top of my head, at least 40% with the new LEDs through even the service shop and the entire building. You guys should come check
Just
it out.
FYI question, I know you guys, I think you're still, are you in the building now?
We just got our permit on Friday.
So then the temporary,
That's getting shipped tomorrow.
excellent. I'd like to hear it. Yes. All right, so with that, I'll open it up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns?
Hello, name's Mark Kratman, 101 Merrimack Meadows. I hope you look in favor of granting this waiver for their sign. This place has been vacant for a while. This area is poorly lit. When you get down there, it's just an area that's been not developed in a while. There's the site distance is fine, but it's just a place where, not by any other, because of there's power lines and everything else down there, there's not a lot of street lighting, not a lot of things. And so I can see their point, that could drive right by the business. And we finally got somebody that's coming to the community that's going to make an investment in our community. And just, I understand why we have our waivers, but this is something that's in a poorly lit. I think this calls for something to take into consideration for it, and I think that would be helpful to start a new business off on the right foot. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else with any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none? Anyone on the board with any additional comments?
Nope, all set.
All right, what is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. As to the waivers as requested by the petitioner, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the applicant's signed special permit according to the spec.
All right, so we've got section 6.2D, 6.27C1, 627C2, and 627D. Those are the waivers requested. We have a motion to approve those as requested. Do we have a second?
Second.
Did you read off number 2?
627C1?
Are we giving that waiver, the one to no lights? They said they,
Oh, you're right, you know what, you're right, scratch that one, because it's not a waiver, that was just a note that
Right.
you have to comply with it. Unless you're open, you can't have the one between
Right.
12 and 6, so
Right.
not a waiver to it, that's just included.
Yeah, that was another thing that we did in the building. Everything's on automatic lights to save.
Good.
Hopefully you don't have the same company as that school had that couldn't turn the lights off.
Mr. Chairman, number 3 is also not a waiver, correct?
Yes, you're right, you're right. So we're not waiving them, we're just, you have to be compliant with them.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, so we have the motion for the waivers that are requested. We have a motion made, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, motion made and second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the signed special permit itself.
motion to approve as submitted with the waivers.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the signed special permit. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Good luck. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch, guys.
Moving on to agenda item E, which is 2504 Main Street. As we mentioned earlier, they've requested to be continued to our March 13th meeting. We have them penciled in for 7:15. So can I have a motion to continue this hearing till 7:15 on March 13th?
So moved.
A motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Brings us to agenda item F, which is 2122 Main Street. This is site plan review, land disturbance. Do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Gentlemen, once you get settled, if you give your names to the record, the floor will be yours.
Good evening.
Actually, you know what, I'm gonna do one housekeeping item. Can we take this here and put it over there?
Yep.
Only because you're blocking part of the audience here that I can't see and they can't
And the
see me.
camera hits there,
And the
too.
camera will pick it up over there. Just the whole thing, and then just put it right next to the podium, and then kind of turn it so we can see it and as much of the audience can see it as possible, if you wouldn't mind. One housekeeping item, because we have 3 hearings that pertain to the same thing tonight. Just so everybody knows, we're not going to, relitigate whether or not these businesses should go where they're going. That was handled by the zoning. So we're not going to discuss that. It's been determined that they're okay in the zone that they're being submitted for. So we won't go through that. You're welcome to talk about the project itself. If you don't like how it looks, if you're concerned about traffic, that's all free game, okay? But we're not going to say this shouldn't be here, because that's what the zoning did. It already said it can be there. So I don't want to go through that all night. That's not really the question for us. The question is the one that's being presented and what's being presented. We'll go through that as much as anybody wants, but if you get up and do the opposite of what I just said, I'm going to stop you, all right? So, with those ground rules in place, somebody can give you names for the record?
Thank you to the chair. Valerio Romano, 34 Elm Street in Cohasset, attorney for the petitioner.
Ian Ainsley, engineer from Mazda Brem Corporation, 142 Whittleton Road in Westford. And we're also joined tonight by Davis Patel from the Stories Company. He's one of the two founders and the applicant.
As well as Ed Davis, our director of security. He's a Tewksbury resident.
All right, I think the name sounds familiar for several people, and even if it doesn't, think about it for just a second, it'll come to you. Thank you.
So our proposal here is a 5,400 square foot commercial building, half of which, 2,700 square feet, would be for a recreational marijuana retailer, and the remaining 2,700 square feet would be for a future commercial use that would either be office, retail, or a quick service restaurant. We're not quite sure yet. We kind of wanted to leave our options open, so what we've tried to do is design for the most intense of those uses, and depending on who we get for a tenant in that other half of the building, hoping that would cover that. Just some history of this property. The planning board granted a site plan for a mixed-use development back in 2016. That was for a commercial residential mixed use. The zoning bylaw has changed several times since then, amendments, and the fact that this is a different use. It was determined by, I think, planning staff and the building department that a new application would be needed for those reasons, rather than coming back in and amending that approved site plan permit, which is what we've done here. So this is a brand-new application. The applicant is in front of the select board now for their cannabis retail license and their host community agreement. I believe Tewksbury has set it up so that the select board will not vote on that application until a site has been granted site plan approval, which is what we are here for tonight. So they've both been filed at the same time. And we've also filed for a land disturbance permit for the stormwater for the construction, just because I think it makes the most sense to do all of that at once. So that's kind of the basic gist. I can go through the plan itself and kind of stand up if that works.
Yeah, just grab the mic from the podium if you would mind.
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. So this is the plan of the proposed building and development. This is Main Street, right here, Route 38. There's an existing curb cut here now that we would be modifying and widening for two-way commercial vehicles to be coming in and out. We have parking spaces here on the side and parking spaces in front of the building, and then some in the back. The thought would be the spaces in the back would be for employees, people that wouldn't need to be going in and out often. As I said, this is two-way coming in, two-way in the front, and then there's a one-way around the building and coming back out to the intersection. So assuming the most intense use for the other half of the building from those three uses that I had mentioned, it's one space per 500 square feet, or one space per 200 square feet. And if you add up the requirements for the cannabis retail facility in that half of the building, you get about 27, 28 spaces, depending on how you round. We're proposing 45, so we have significantly more than would be required for any of those potential uses. There is now existing water, electric, and gas and sewer services and availability on the street. There is a sewer main in the back with an easement that we would connect into. And we do have, if I can flip to the next page here. do have a stormwater design that is intended to meet all of the new stormwater requirements in the Tewksbury stormwater bylaw, and that's being reviewed by the engineering department. It's a chamber underground infiltration system, so all of the impervious area on the site, including the building, other than the very, very front at the intersection, would all drain into the system. The soil is very good on the site, and that means the groundwater was low. It's very rapid infiltration rate, so this is definitely a site that makes sense to do infiltration on. The chambers, by putting them underground, lets you use more of the site instead of having that be taken up by a surface like a basin and things like that. And we do show erosion control, things like that. We do have some basic landscaping around the building, as well as some trees planted in the front. And I think that's really the gist of it, so I'm kind of happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, open up to the board. We'll start with Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me about the, rather long list that the engineering department has some concerns about, and where we stand with addressing those issues?
So we did have a meeting, it was like a Zoom meeting with the town staff a couple weeks ago, and they did air some of these comments to us, so we got to hear that then. We did just receive the actual letter a few days ago. There's definitely some issues to deal with, one of which is the fire department. They want a turning analysis showing that a Tewksbury fire apparatus could make it around the building. We will do that, and we will do, all the things that are being requested in here. I don't think there's anything that is not doable. Some examples of the major items, they want us to do additional soil testing in that infiltration drainage system. We do have infiltration and soil testing out there already, but they want it to be in the actual area of the system. But based on the testing we have out there, I don't expect it to be particularly different, just because there is a good amount of testing around it. They do have some comments here about doing a lighting plan, a lumen plan, showing the photometric intensity on the site, which we're happy to do. They requested that the sidewalk along Main Street be replaced with new concrete or new vertical granite curbing. I don't think we have an issue with doing that either. There's some kind of technical items as far as, water and sewer services and details. And then I think they were looking for some traffic analysis, which we do have a traffic engineer from TEP LLC working on that. So we have not responded in writing, and we have not sent in revised plans, but we are working on them, and I don't think there's anything in here that's insurmountable.
Is there some state approval that you're going to need as well?
Yeah, so Main Street, that's Route 38, State Route 38. So they will need approval from Mass DOT to construct that entrance, as well as tie into any utilities.
And I understand that there's still a problem with the turning radius with the, for the fire apparatus?
Yeah, I mean,
on the entrance there, that they had to cross the yellow line and on Main Street in order to make the turn. Is that accurate? Or?
Yeah, there's been some changes in the fire codes where when you run the turning templates now, they don't want you crossing into the other lane. So that is something that we will take into consideration when we run that analysis.
Okay, so you still have some work to do here.
Yes.
On the engineering side of things. So my next question would be, it's a very good-looking building, I'll say that, a good rendering. But, we end up with a lot of empty spaces along Main Street, and we would be probably, really like to see something in there that, that goes in simultaneous to the other project, or in that vicinity. And we'd like to see you guys work diligently to have another tenant in there. Now, that being said, I know you mentioned that you may consider a restaurant capability,
Yeah.
which would need some additional, grease trap.
You need a grease trap,
And
yeah.
that type of thing,
Yeah.
are you willing to, kind of put that stuff in as a potential, to attract that type of attention?
Yes, we would, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, be interesting to see how it shakes out. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right, we'll go to Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I saw in here that you're still digesting Ms. Fowler's letter and recommendations and whatnot. Are you planning on applying for waivers to any of the items that are listed in here? There are some things which can be waived. I was just curious if you were going to come back to us, or if your overall plan was to find a way to become 100% compliant, but then say, we'd like waivers for these because we feel it would enhance the business or, offer some other benefits to the project or to the town.
So we did, as it is now, we are not requesting any waivers or zoning variances as part of our application. I did read through the letter from the planning staff, and I did see, which ones could be waived. I don't think any of these, that there's a benefit to waiving them to, rather than just comply. So our plan and intention right now is to comply with each of those and not ask for any waivers.
Okay. Will there be any additional signage besides what you're showing on the facade? And obviously, there's no way to know what kind of signage would be required for whoever moves into the future commercial space.
Yeah, so we do show, actually, I'll pull up the plan. We do show a freestanding monument sign here on the plan on sheet 4. That would be at the entrance. And on the building rendering, we do show signage, generic signage here for Stories and for the future tenant. It was requested that we do a master signage plan as part of this application, which we will do. And I think as part of that master signage plan, we will leave the tenant, we'll have it on there in as much detail as we can possibly provide at that time, without knowing the exact business. But our hope is that that master signage plan would encompass all of the signage that would be needed.
Okay. And the only other thing I would say, and this is just a thought, is I guess it's mostly just me, but I think there's other elements of Tewksbury. We are trying to encourage that future businesses I don't think it would necessarily apply to the Story side of it, but for a restaurant or something like that, you might want to consider putting in some provisions for future EV charging for 1 or 2 of your parking spaces. All that kind of stuff's really easy to put in while the ground's already being dug up. A lot harder to put in after the fact. So I just thought I'd mention that as just to incorporate as part of your design.
We would certainly consider that, especially where we have kind of excess spaces. I think it's a good opportunity to have some diversity in the type of spaces that are there.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Lauder.
Just to add some color to Mr. Ciampa's comment, that's going to be required by the building code anyway.
Okay.
For commercial properties, so we're all still kind of learning about it and figuring out what the rules are, but I would encourage you to take a look at the new stretch energy code, because that is what the town has adopted, not the super stretch, but the stretch energy code.
Okay.
Mr. Fowler.
Thank you. While you're dusting off some of your work that has been submitted so that you can get rid of some of the concerns from engineering and from our office, do you feel that 2 handicap spaces on this property is sufficient for 2 businesses?
Well, that is what's required by the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. I believe it's 2 for up to 50 spaces. But at the same time, I don't think there's harm in adding more.
No. And
So
that,
if
to
that's
me,
something.
it's logical.
Yeah, if the board feels that there should be more, I don't think we would have an issue, adding 1 or 2 more, certainly.
All right. I like the looks of the building. I had a couple of other items, but being the fact that you're coming back, I'm not going to belabor that this evening. All right. All set.
Mr. Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of comments. I know being a new retail establishments coming into town, being marijuana, I don't think anybody really knows the effect of what traffic is going to be in some of the areas of town. I've been to a couple of the other facilities that do sell, and it seems like it's very, very busy. Would that be a concession of your agreement?
So I will say, and Val, you can speak a little bit to this too. I know when these were first opening and there were fewer of them, there was more extreme traffic happening because, it was brand new for the whole state. Now that there's so many kind of widespread throughout the state, that demand that was kind of statewide, I believe, has shrunk as each one kind of opens more and more. Our experience has been, Val and I have worked on several of these in Pepperell, in Quincy and other towns, and we have not had the kind of traffic that was experienced in the early days of these opening. So I would not expect, a significant issue, especially where we have kind of additional parking than what's required by zoning. Our hope would be if people are coming in, they have a place to go, rather than being stranded and backing up onto the street. And lastly, Main Street is an arterial of the town, has a lot of capacity. So I do think there's, a lot of opportunity for cars to maneuver on a main street like that.
I was just curious, because I seen one of your comments here saying that the site is not expected to have a significant impact to traffic on the street. Have you been there in the afternoon at 4 o'clock at all?
I did. I
Where it's
went there to
backed
look
up
at the
on a
site.
regular basis.
Yep.
Waiting for that light at Shawshene to change and so forth. So, bringing a business like this into the town, I think it is going to draw more traffic than we realize. That with the addition of Treehouse Brewery down the street, and another business next to you as well at some point. So a traffic study that you're working on, I think the majority of us would be probably looking for that as well.
Sure.
Going forward,
Yep.
so.
And we are having that done by a traffic engineer.
Okay. So just a generic question. Do you think having a cannabis store would deter somebody from moving in next to you at all?
Part of the reason I appreciated Mr. Duffy's comment about trying to put them in simultaneously, we were actually trying to put the cannabis retailer in beforehand so that we could, find an appropriate use to go next to it. Because this is really the prime focus of the property. This is why we're purchasing the property and building this, is to put the cannabis retailer in. But it's sort of, it's sort of the contrary. The downstream revenue for communities that host cannabis retailers is fairly significant. So depending on the appropriateness of the use that we can put next door, it could actually be something of a boon for that business as well as other ones. Cannabis, isn't covered by insurance and whatnot. People come in and they frequently have money in their pockets to spend. So, local restaurants and whatnot are also, benefited from these things. So we were hoping to find an appropriate use to go next to it. And of course, input from the board on what that use, might be would be welcome as well. So having cited, scores of these around Massachusetts over the last number of years, maybe 100 plus, I've always felt that it is an economic boon to the community and doesn't really, we're not going to put a karate studio next door, obviously,
No.
So it doesn't
Or a
really.
school.
Yeah. So it doesn't really deter, the regular commercial businesses. In fact, it is usually helpful for them. So.
Okay. I've heard both sides of it,
Yeah.
you hear from residents saying, well, I don't want that in my backyard. then I've heard people saying, yeah, well, it's a boom to some of the towns, so I guess we'll see how it pans out, I think, so, but.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but thinking of the businesses that, you could go there, I'd rather live next to, a gorgeous cannabis retailer than a Dunkin' Donuts. I'd rather live next to, a gorgeous cannabis retailer than a liquor store. I'd rather live next to this than the plenty of other uses that may even be by right, in the community. Because these places always are immaculately maintained, and, this is a great company who's doing it, and their sister company already opened elsewhere in the state, and so I feel like it's actually, because we're gonna do it so well, and we're showing renderings and revitalizing or turning this property into something where it's just vacant land now. I think, as a neighbor, something like this that's, low key and immaculately maintained and perfect facade, I think actually looks a lot better than an ugly Dunkin', for instance.
Sure. Well, it's been an eyesore in the town. I shouldn't say an eyesore, but it's been a vacant piece of property for a long time. And we've continued some of the prior permit applications going forward, but it never panned out. But I'm glad to see you guys stepped up, and hopefully it'll work. One of the other comments I read, I seen is the fence in the back. I don't know, is that your fence or is it the neighbor's fence? Any idea?
I'm not sure.
Pardon me? Okay.
I did go out there and looking at the condition of the fences, we've kind of already determined that we're going to either put new ones in on our property, or if the neighbors wish, replace or rehabilitate the ones that are there.
Okay.
So we are going to
I think
add,
that would be a plus for all of us.
Yeah, I think it would be a-
Board members,
I think it'd be a
residents, and
plus for
the
everyone.
butters as well,
Yep.
just to make the property look that much better, Nothing against the fence that you have there now, but I'm sure it needs some repair like they all do, so,
And that came up at our community outreach meeting too, and the fence has been on our mind
Yeah.
since October.
so now this building is a one-story building, correct? There's no
Correct, yep.
offices above,
Yep,
right?
Yep, it's a slab.
Did you ever entertain the idea of separating the properties into two buildings rather than one?
We did look at that early on, especially because the old mixed-use site plan approval was residential, really one side, commercial on the other.
Yeah.
We did kind of look at that, but, to get the parking that we needed, that we thought we needed, to meet all of the zoning requirements, to fit a building large enough and to meet the setbacks and the pavement setbacks, this was kind of something that did all of that. So we kind of abandoned the two-building approach.
Good. I'm all set for now. I know we got a number of issues to go over in the future, so let my colleagues speak.
All right, so one of the things that, because we mentioned the fence, I'll stop there. To me, the landscaping, I know you said a little bit about it, but I think the landscaping is going to be important, especially going in the back section, because that's where you're butting up against, neighborhood neighbors as opposed to commercial neighbors. So between the fence and the landscaping, the more the better in terms of trying to, separate yourselves from the residents as best you can. And, that way, it sort of bleeds into my comment on the rendering. It's the back of your building, true, but it's what the residents are gonna be staring at that are behind you, depending on the fence and the potential landscaping. So the more landscaping, the less I'm probably going to say to you about what can we do at the back of the building to make sure it's not just this sort of blank wall to stare at from their backyards. So it's kind of going to be one or the other. It's going to be they can't really see it because we've done a good job with the fence and the landscaping, or what are we going to do with the back of the building because it needs to look a little bit more
And it could be both, too.
visual.
So-
Yeah, and like I said, it's gonna depend after you start showing us, but I want to give you the heads up now that it's something for you to be considering, because it's gonna be something I'm gonna keep asking you. Show me what is it gonna look like if you're staring at it from the back.
Yep.
Because when we've done these before, we've tried to treat these ones, because of where they are, as a four-corner issue. It's not just the front face that's on 38, it's the two sides and the back, because they're seen. So keep that in mind. I know the renderings aren't the final version, but we like to see the best, closest to what it is you're telling us you're gonna do in a way that people can see it. The plans are fine, and you can draw all you want, mark them and everything, but people aren't looking at those plans the same way they're gonna look at the renderings. And those folks in the back will be like, what am I looking at? What's it look like to me?
No, it makes complete sense to me.
I think it's not unreasonable to have that available for them. I had a question about the routing of the traffic. Is there any consideration or reason to consider making it one way? So when you come in, you have to go around, come out? Because I'm thinking about, you've got these sort of two pieces of parking lot, and you've got that loop coming around the back. That seems like a bit of congestion potentially in that crisscross right there for the people coming in off 38, someone coming at them, and it's offset. You've got this road that comes around the back, driving right at the person who'd be coming in. So they don't seem to line up quite right, for one. So I'm wondering if that shouldn't maybe try to come over a little bit, because, it would line up better, it might make the one-way make more sense, and cut down on the likelihood of a log jam in that sort of crisscross area where, as Mr. Fratalia pointed out, traffic, you want to get it off of 38 and into your business, but you also want to allow it to come out on the 38 in an orderly manner. So I wondered if you can look at that and see if there isn't maybe, and it may or may not help you with your turn radius for the fire.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you can kind of reconfigure this a little bit.
Yeah, we can look at that, certainly.
What else did I have? Most of the rest, I think, I'll leave it to engineering to, for you to answer some of their questions. But those are the ones that, like I said, some directional sense to this, I think, might
Well, I
possible.
appreciate that, because we want to kind of take the board's feedback, the staff feedback, the engineering feedback, and kind of
The
do
only other
all of
one
that
I'd
at
say
once.
too is, obviously, unlike some of our other sites we've had, when we've had some concerns, when we do these, where there's a small piece of commercial, but it's really just to get the housing, and then the commercial sits empty. You're not proposing housing, which is what a lot of people tell us they want us to have, not housing. So that's what you're proposing. So, I thank you for presenting what people say they want. I will say this, though, if you're gonna have the other half and you don't know yet, that it's important that that other half be maintained in a way, and, because we have some of these where you see the storefronts they don't look right because they're empty. So something, whether it's some of the window dressings or whatever it is that's used while it remains empty until you have a tenant, is gonna be something I'm gonna ask that we add as a requirement.
Sure.
Because until you have somebody, I don't want one side to look great and the other side to just look like, it defeats the entire purpose of asking you to make sure the whole place, right there on 38 in the middle of our town, looks right. So it's gonna be important that, you get a tenant, that's great, then you can deal with that. But up until you do, or if it ever becomes vacant again, that's gonna be something I'm gonna want in the special permit, that it's required that and then we're gonna keep the right to check on it and call you back in if we don't think it's right.
Yeah, that's an absolutely reasonable condition of the site plan for sure.
All right.
And we also want our customers to come to an inviting place too. We don't want it to look like, like run down or anything, so we want to make sure.
Well, that was kind of sort of the catch-22, to what Paul was bringing up, is that, we're concerned about the traffic, but at the same time, we want you busy.
Yeah.
Because you're not, no one's coming, then, it's not good for us, it's not good for you, and, then we have 2 empty spaces because you left.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things, it's kind of a push.
Well, we're purchasing it, so I think we're in for the long haul.
Which is good.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for me for now. Obviously, we'll have some more, and then we'll get back to the engineering stuff, so we probably might have more things to discuss, as we continue the process. But for now, I'll open it up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns, please come up to the podium. Once you come up, just give your name and your address, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Lyons. I'm here with my wife, Bernadette Lyons. We own Dandelions directly across the street. But before I start, Mr. Chairman, I would like you to just give me a little bit of background on the zoning issue that you talked about, because I don't want to be disrespectful to what you said.
Yeah,
So-
fair enough. So what I was basically saying, we just zoned this in our last town meeting and basically determined where these are appropriate and what zones they should go in. So what I didn't want to get into was a conversation of, this shouldn't be here. That's not the question. We've basically, as a town, said, it is zoned for that, therefore bringing it in is not inappropriate. if you want to discuss what it looks like, you want to talk about traffic, any of those kind of things, that's fair game. I just don't want to go back and forth about something, as far as I'm concerned, we settled at town meeting about whether or not it's something that can be presented for that area.
So I was confused. I thought you had said the zoning board of appeals. So what you're telling me is that the town meeting passed it 165 to 35. You also know clearly that the town of Tewksbury voted against it on the statewide issue in 2016. So I'm gonna,
Hold on, see, because we're not going to do that either, where we do half a truth and.
well, it's totally true.
But in
It's
between,
totally
we
true.
took other votes at town meeting, we sunsetted the rules, so there are a lot of things that happen in between, so I don't want to do partial, what we're
Right.
saying, and then it's misleading. The
But-
bottom line is that town meeting approved it at the last town meeting, that's where we stand now.
Mr. Chairman, I've been at that location since 1991. I did not have an opportunity to speak at the town meeting. I'm not a member of the town of Tewksbury. I live in Andover. So I just want to make sure that the planning board understands, from our perspective, what our thoughts are. I hope you give me the courtesy to at least give me my thoughts of why we object to this. First of all, on the issue of the stormwater and those types of issues, which I think is what the land disturbance permit is about tonight, right? That's the first step in this procedure. But the planning board does need to take a final vote on whether or not the plans that are submitted comply with the planning department. Am I correct?
I'm not sure if I understood.
So in other words, if someone wanted to put something into a location that's inconsistent with the master plan of the town of Tewksbury, you would listen to that information.
Again, if we're going to try and do the semantics.
No, I'm not trying to do semantics.
It's
I'm
zoned
trying
for
to be
that area.
respectful. I'm trying to be respectful of what you
I
said.
understand what you're saying.
Okay.
The most recent decision made by this town on this issue was at our last town meeting. Now, you can, I don't know if that was your intent, but if your question was to question how many people were at town meeting.
no, I
or
was
anything
just-
like that, it's simply our process.
I-
So everybody was welcome. Those who showed up, that's the rule. It was certified by the Secretary of State. It's our bylaw now.
Right.
So
Right.
I
But people have a
understand.
right to challenge things like this at planning board meetings, right? Every planning board
You can
meeting.
challenge what we're discussing, but like I said, I don't want to get into a conversation about whether it belongs there, because that was already determined by zoning it for that area. So it's not a question of whether or not they can bring it forward. If you have questions about what it looks like, traffic concerns, the kind of issues that we're discussing here, then fine. But if we're going to try and relitigate whether or not it's an appropriate business for the site, that's been determined by the town in saying this is one of the places it belongs. It'd be no different than if you were living in an R40 district and someone wanted to build a single-family home, and then you come in and say, I don't think a single-family home belongs there. Why would you have that? That's exactly what it's zoned for. We wouldn't have that argument there either.
Well, I
You
think you'll-
discuss what the home might look like.
Right.
But you wouldn't discuss, should a single-family home go there? That's what an R40 is. So we wouldn't be discussing that. So I don't want to discuss it here, where we get into, should it be there? That's not the question. The one that's being presented, the question's about it itself, what it looks like, the landscaping, the traffic. All that is all free game, but it's not going to be a question of, should it be there? If what's presented you don't think should be there, fine.
Okay, what's presented, I don't think should be there.
Okay.
Because I think it impacts the entire neighborhood that is currently in existence in that area of Route 38. We are a family-friendly business. We sell flowers, ice cream, and Christmas trees. Right beside us, 2 doors down, is another family-friendly business. Mini golf, arcades, young kids go to those facilities. 1,000 feet away is a school.
So we're gonna continue to do what I just said we're not gonna do.
No,
Which is
you-
we're not gonna litigate whether it can be there. That was determined by zoning. I'm asking you, do you have an issue with the way it looks, the traffic?
I just said
Something.
that. I said it.
You're
it's
talking
incon-
about schools down the street.
Are you
You're
gonna-
talking about family-friendly businesses. You're talking about the whether it should be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not our question. The question is, do you have issues with what's presented on its face, the building itself, the setup, something along those lines? but not relitigating whether or not this type of an establishment
The,
can go there or not. It can go there. The question is what's presented
Does-
something
could I
that
ask-
meets the rules?
in your opinion, Mr. Chairman, do you believe that the planning board also has the responsibility to protect existing businesses?
Within the context of our bylaws, sure.
Okay.
But again, I'd be asking you to tell us what about this project
Well,
beyond
I was
what it
trying
is?
to tell you that, you interrupted me.
Okay. Because you're not.
Well, no,
not
you're the
sticking to
one
what I
who's
asked you
making-
to stick to, which is a conversation about what's presented, not the thing itself.
No, the question I just asked you was, do you believe that the planning board has a responsibility to also protect other businesses? And you said yes. So the
Within the context of the bylaws.
So the
For
reason-
reasons listed in the bylaws.
Right.
You're asking it like a generic question, and I'm answering you saying, as determined by the bylaws.
Right.
Things we're supposed to keep an eye on. Like we just had a conversation about landscaping around the surrounding homes.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing, again, I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but for me, that's one of those things that is keeping the interests of those around it within the context of what we're
Mr.
supposed to
Chairman?
do.
If I may ask a question of our petitioner here?
Excuse me,
This
sir?
was a candy store. If these gentlemen were proposing a candy store with this exact same package, would you be up here in protest?
So this isn't a candy store.
I'm asking a question.
Well, you're asking me a
Hypothetical, yes,
hypothetical,
but-
and I'm not going to answer a hypothetical question. I'm going to try to address what the chairman just asked me. The traffic pattern that you talked about earlier is certainly going to have a negative impact on my business. There's no question about it. As you,
So
as
you're not
you
an issue
indicate.
with traffic, then that's fine.
Well, that's what I was, first, the thing I was addressing was, maybe I used the wrong word talking about a family-friendly business. I wasn't trying to get off topic and suggest that a marijuana shop is not a family-friendly business. To this gentleman, maybe it is. To me, it isn't. So I wasn't trying to be disrespectful to you, Mr. Chairman. So the traffic pattern alone, as you pointed out, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you can't get up and down Route 38. To bring this type of high-volume business into that location is certainly going to impact other businesses that are there. That is why I asked you the question about whether or not you, as the planning board, have to make a determination about the impact it could have on another business. What if that impact put me out of business? You're concerned about bringing new businesses in, and I appreciate that. I've been in business since I was 21. I've been there since 1991. From our perspective, the family-friendly nature of our business brings young kids to our store. As a parent, is that something that parents are going to want to do going forward? That is an impact on my business. You don't like that, but,
We're gonna keep going round and round on this.
well, you just don't like,
If you have an issue on a traffic issue, please stick to the traffic
You
issue.
have kids on bicycles that come. I mean, how is that not a traffic issue? Like, I wouldn't want someone.
First of all, hold on.
my wife,
You
Bernadette.
can't come up and start talking in the
Go ahead.
middle while someone's already up there.
But you've
You wanna come
interrupted
up
me a
afterwards,
half a
you're
dozen
free to
times.
do so.
Mr.
That's
Chairman,
fine.
you've interrupted me a half a dozen times because you don't like what I'm saying.
No, it's because you're not listening to what I said, which is we are not gonna relitigate whether or not this type of business can go there. If you have a specific issue about the traffic patterns, then ask those questions or voice those concerns in the context of traffic.
If there was an office building in my location, right?
We're gonna do hypotheticals, because you just had a fit about hypotheticals.
No, I didn't. I didn't have a fit. I said I wasn't going to answer one.
Okay, so
All right.
you want me to do hypotheticals then?
No, you just listen to what I have to say. How's that?
Feel free, Mr. Lyons.
If there was an office building, then we owned an office building there, we wouldn't be having children coming to the office building. So the point that I was trying to make to you and to the board is that when I asked the question about whether or not you, as a board, have a responsibility to try to protect other businesses, you said yes. And the reason that I wanted,
You're misquoting me again because I said within the context of the bylaws, not in the context of whatever it is you just want to bring up. which is why I'm trying to bring us back to.
So the traffic issue is going to impact my business?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the reason it's going to impact my business is because what's going to happen, particularly at very busy times of the day, people are not going to want to drive to our location. So it is going to impact our business, number one. Number two, the stormwater treatment that you folks have been working on, does that comply with just federal law, state law, or federal law, or both?
So,
Those are generally state laws, but there are some federal provisions within.
So does it perform to the Corps of Engineers? Is it conform to a permit required by the Corps of Engineers?
At this time, given that there are outstanding comments from the engineering division, I would hazard a guess at not entirely, but that's something that the applicants will have to work towards full compliance.
So during December, there was a backup at the top of the hill. Do you folks remember this at all? Maybe, I mean, you might not remember it, where the water was not going down the drain and it backed up onto Route 38 and into our parking lot. Are you familiar with that at all?
No.
So that happened in December, and all of the water streamed onto our parking lot. The reason I'm bringing this up is to make sure that the erosion and the overwhelming, is the erosion going to overwhelm the existing sewer system that we have in place? Do we know that?
we'll get that answer from engineering once they've gone over everything.
So right now, we don't know that. Is that fair enough?
We have not gotten full sign off from engineering, so I wouldn't speak to that for them as to whether or not, which things they are currently unsatisfied with, or if he changes something, how they may affect something else. Until we get full sign off from the town engineer that everything that they've asked for is sufficient, that's where we leave it. It's still outstanding.
So it's fair to say then that at the moment, there is an inadequacy within the Office of the Operation and Maintenance of the sewer system.
I would say that the accurate statement would be say that we have not yet received confirmation from engineering that everything is compliant yet. Not that it isn't, we just don't have that confirmation.
Okay, fair enough. Just procedurally, Mr. Chairman.
Ms.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just a point of clarification, it's not the sewer system that we're talking about here, it's the stormwater system.
Right.
And the applicant's engineer can correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is that the stormwater standards for the state do not allow for stormwater to drain onto adjacent properties, so they generally handle it with underground chambers and treat it on site before it goes back into the watershed, but it wouldn't be, we're not talking about sewer here, basically. That's a separate issue.
Right, stormwater.
Yes.
You're correct. So the Tewksbury rules related to the Corps of Army Engineers requires, the federal law requires that there needs to be site inspections, and you folks know this a lot better than I do, when more than a quarter of inch of rain occurs. Is that the type of storm system that you're putting in?
Yes, so that would be required for any project that disturbs more than an acre. That's the EPA construction general permit. And this project is disturbing just under an acre. We will be complying with all of the state and town requirements, but the federal requirement through the EPA is not applicable in this scenario because they only regulate sites that are disturbing an acre or more.
So your position is that the federal requirement is not, you don't have to comply with, correct?
Correct. But just, I mean, I don't know if the chair wants us to engage in this dialogue. Perhaps we should just hear, but I don't think we're not necessarily not complying with the federal requirement. It's just not applicable.
There is no federal
There is no federal
That's a
requirement
better
for
way
what
to
we're
say it.
doing. So I just don't want to have a misnomer that we're somehow not in compliance with anything, because anything that we're not even asking for a single waiver or variance at this time. So anything in any bylaw, rule, regulation, or law under state, federal, or local level, we are complying with anything that's applicable.
Fair enough, thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, any other discussion other than the site plan itself, you don't want me to get into?
I'll give you a shot, but
Okay.
my guess is that you're gonna do exactly what I asked you not to do.
I'm
but
trying
I'm
to
not
be
gonna cut you
respectful.
off.
I'm
But I will
trying
say
to.
this, because you kind of glossed over it, because it seemed like an important issue, but just to make sure everybody's aware, we're going to get a traffic study.
Yeah.
So a longer conversation about the traffic is pending, but it's silly for us to say too much about it right now until we've seen the report, so we have something to actually comment directly on when they present it, but just so everybody knows, we are requiring that, and we will discuss that at a future meeting.
And we will be invited?
You are the public, you are invited.
As a butters, do we get another notice, or do we have to, I'm just not familiar
No,
with the
once this starts, after that, it just goes forward with, we'll set when they're coming in next.
Okay.
That's where everybody will be aware, it'll be publicized as usual.
Fair
We'll
enough.
get individual specific notice for each hearing.
Fair enough. So I'm trying to be as respectful to what you asked me to do, because I did have a lot of other data that I was going to go
1 second though,
into.
before you start the next thing, because I can see Ms. Lauder, she may have something that
Yeah, go ahead.
maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So 2 items. To follow the public hearing, as the chairman noted, once it's continued, we will continue it to a certain date and time, very likely March 13th, unless the applicant's representatives have a different suggestion. And those agendas are posted on the town website, on the calendar, and I keep it as updated as I can. So if somebody continues, you'll see that noted on there. Second part is if there is something you want to discuss outside of the 4 corners of traffic, site circulation, stormwater, and the like, they do have to have a license hearing with the select board, and that may be more appropriate for some of your comments.
Fair enough. When would that be?
I don't believe that's been scheduled
They
yet.
can't go to the select board until they've finished site.
Then I
plan
think
with
what
us.
I'll do then is, rather than
Yeah, you get another bite at the apple.
rather than push your patience, I think what
No,
I'll
that's
do
all
is,
right. Like you
is,
said, I only because, again, we have this one and 2
Right.
more just like it.
No, I appreciate
So I
that.
don't want to have to do that each
Get
time.
it, fair
So,
enough.
and Like Ms. Lauder pointed out, the select board will have, a different
Final say,
version
that's
of
all.
this.
Yeah.
Where things will be discussed that, we may not really be the appropriate place for. There was one question I was going to ask after that, about security, but ultimately, security is going to really be a select board issue. I was going to ask it for a different reason, that I felt connected to this, but if you're concerned with security, that's not really us. That's going to be the select board portion of this, provided they get there.
all righty. Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anyone else with questions, comments, or concerns on this? I didn't, because you kind of were up next, so I'll let you go if you do.
Be careful, Mr. Chairman.
That's all right.
Bernadette Lyons, owner of
I
Dandelions.
know the tougher of the two has just stepped up to the podium, so. If you just pull the mic down just a little bit, if you don't mind, thank you.
I just wanted to express my opinion about the traffic situation also. I mean, if you stand at our store, as you say, it starts at 3 o'clock, really, and it's just backed up there. And I'm also really, truly concerned about little kids. We have little kids coming on bikes all the time, and we're going to have people across the street, pop, whatever they do, I don't even know what, what is it, recreational marijuana. Are they going to be able to use it, like, in their cars?
No.
And how do we stop that?
Okay. We're
that's not
sliding
a question?
outside
Okay.
our realm again.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just because now we're talking about actual laws.
Okay,
And where
all
you
right.
can or cannot do that kind of
I
thing.
mean, that is one of my big concerns.
I mean, it would be very similar, and I don't mean to be, again, it'd be like walking out of a liquor store and trying to drink in your car. It's
Yeah,
not-
but it's a little different. I mean,
Well,
when you
I'm not sure,
you
but
smell,
sure, but
no.
it's the same idea, is what I mean.
Legally, but when you can smell marijuana coming out of cars, like, as they drive by you. So when people do it, I mean, then maybe they're not supposed to, but they do it. And, that's a big problem, I think. And I do want to say that when we were approached to sell our property, and we were told that it was going to be a doctor's office. So I think that that's kind of underhanded way to approach things. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? I think, there.
Just a quick question. Kim Mulligan, 23 Hill Street. So is
If you
now
stay
the
behind the mic though, just because that picks it up at home. and
Is
on
now the time that they would be determining where trash removal would take place and stuff? The dumpster, I don't see a dumpster
Yeah,
on.
you don't have that on there.
Yes, so it actually is on there, and I can show it to you.
Oh, okay, good.
So this is Main Street. This is the proposed building, it's at 36. 23. The dumpster is shown here. So we can back corner of the building. That would be fenced around.
All right, because this, I just realized this isn't gonna get picked up. Can you pick up the microphone and just repeat what you said? Because I realized we didn't ask you to.
So I was just pointing out that the dumpster location is east or behind the building, over on this side, and that is going to be screened. There's going to be a fence around it. So just to answer your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, anyone else, questions, comments, or concerns on this one? Sir, I saw you start to rise. Did you change your mind? No, not you? Okay. I thought I cut you off when...
He was stretching.
Okay.
I was stretching.
All right. All right, so no one else with any questions or comments on this one right now? Is that correct? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Does anyone on the board have anything additional they want to ask or
I had
discuss?
just one question. I actually was going to ask about the dumpster. Will the considerations for the dumpster and waste and whatnot also be designed around the most intense use for the second commercial property?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I mean, having worked in restaurants a lot as a youth, there's grease storage and other types of waste. And-
So the grease would go into a grease trap generally, and that's something that would be, I mean, you can do external surface ones. You can also do them underground in an underground tank. I would put some sort of kind of all-encompassing note on the plan saying that if that use is a restaurant, that a grease trap would be installed compliant with the town and state regulations. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Anyone else?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. To your question about the dumpster, we can also regulate the hours as far as pickup, so they're not coming to your house at 5 o'clock in the morning to pick up the dumpster. It's going to be later on in the day, so that it's not disturbing abutters. All right? So-
Can we, let's make a note of that, make sure we don't forget when we do it, if we get to conditions. Anyone else?
No, sir.
All right, I had one security-related question. It's generic in that it goes back to my question about the back part of the building that's kind of a giant white plain back. And I'm curious as to what, if any, video surveillance or whatever might be around the building, because I hate to think of somebody getting excited about such a blank space to, draw on and whatnot, and then have the neighbors having to worry about that.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. We do a comprehensive site survey.
I know who you are, if you just...
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies. My name is Ed Davis. My company is located at 2 Atlantic Avenue in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm a city town resident on 90 Fraser Lane as well.
Thank you.
So we're happy to represent security for the Stories Company, and to answer your question, there needs to be a fence around the facility to facilitate security. That fence will be augmented by a closed-circuit television system, which is very sophisticated and is of the type that we use across Massachusetts and with our other clients in the space, that's regulated by the Cannabis Control Commission. So this is a heavily regulated industry, and the security protocols are pretty much laid out. The other thing that we do is a lighting survey. It's not an architectural lighting survey, it's a security lighting survey, but the area will be lit up as part of the whole security plan. So it's a very sophisticated process that involves design of the building, design of the deliveries and things like that.
Okay.
There's 24/7 camera monitoring out back.
Yeah.
So, and they're available to Tewksbury law enforcement anytime, all of our camera footage.
That raises a question I would just like to address, was
I'm sorry, because you're stepping up again for the recording.
I'm
Your name and
wondering
address?
if the rear fence was going to be lined with trees as well. If there's all that lighting, a 12-foot fence, I don't know how much that's going to block.
Yeah, so,
But just, because I think we missed it, if you just give your name and your address,
Kim Mulligan, 23 Hill Street.
like, we know you're stepping back up, but on the recording, when they do the minutes,
Sure.
we need to know who it is that's speaking. All right, and so,
yeah, we're going to prepare a photometric plan. The lighting would be downcast and shielded and would not create a lighting nuisance to our neighbors, absolutely. And now, based on, we have the engineering comments and planning comments, but now additional comments from the board, we're going to really look much more closely at a landscaping plan as well. So we put some screenage with trees or whatever the landscaping plan is to make it so it's really comfortable for you, as well as updating that fence so that it just looks good. And so, yeah, we'll make sure, the comments from the board, just like the engineering comments, Ian and I have both taken notes, and they'll get in, and we'll satisfy everybody.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, of course.
you have a question?
On the lighting, I know there's been other buildings that we've had before the board where, obviously lighting into neighborhoods is a concern, and we've kind of liked motion activated lighting.
Yeah, certainly.
As opposed to bright light that may or may not be shining into the neighborhood.
Absolutely, and like I said, also, you know, probably be using those wall packs in the back of the building that's sort of downcast and shield and aren't shining over the fence that's behind there, but maybe a combination of both would work best, so we'd have no problem with that.
All right, so one other thing I'd ask, and this is really, I mean, it's not an ask for me yet, but I'd like you to maybe try to get with the abutters in the back. Now, we have a requirement for what size a fence can be. If I'm not mistaken, we can,
Separating commercial and residential, the maximum is 10 feet, but they can exceed that by special permit, so that can be incorporated into the
So-
approval if it's higher.
Yep.
okay, so, but I'd like, if you could get and discuss the fence size of what the abutters might be most comfortable with. In terms of, you know, I mean, I can't imagine that anybody's gonna be looking for one more than 10 feet, but I'd like you to just have that conversation, because in the event that the consensus is for some reason something might require us to waive the height to be most
get it higher.
appropriate for what you guys come up with, I think the board would probably be amenable to that at the request or discussion with the abutters, because it, you know, makes them feel better. If it doesn't, that's fine. I just want to throw it out there that it's probably a conversation worth having, just because I don't think we'd be against considering giving a waiver for a fence if it's what would make
Everybody happy.
Happy neighbors.
Yep, happy neighbors are part of cannabis business for sure, so. Yep.
All right.
I just have one more question, Mr. Chairman, while Mr. Davis is in front of us. I've attended a number of the informational seminars in town prior to this coming underway, and I was made aware that security in the parking lot is first and foremost for the facility as well. So to her question about somebody possibly using it in the parking lot, I was under the impression that it's monitored by security on a regular basis, as well as children being left in cars at the parking lot, that that's not allowed and monitored by security, and I'm sure you guys will do a great job at doing that. But is that accurate, what I'm saying?
Yes, the normal configuration is one security officer inside, one outside to deal with lines and to pay attention to things like that. Any usage of the product in the parking lot results in banishment from the facility. If anybody does that, they're not allowed back to the operation, besides whatever criminal penalties may apply.
Yeah, we would notify local law enforcement as well.
Sure.
You know, if we caught somebody using cannabis like that.
Great.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about security, but since you're here.
Yeah, we
I
got
guess-
we got the security master as
We
part
got
of
the
our
master,
team.
that's right, so, but I'm all set for now, we'll have you back next time.
All right. So if we have nothing else here, then if you guys be looking to come back on the 13th?
Well, so if we could discuss that for a moment. So I think when we had the tech review or an departmental review, you know, 10 to 14 days was kind of what the board would require for our updated plans. So even if we had this all finished tomorrow, we're still only 13 or 14 days out. So as much as I don't want to delay this in any way, I just want to make sure that Ian has a chance to do his work. Our traffic engineer does too, our lighting engineer. Now, you know, we're going to probably get somebody to come in and do a landscaping plan in addition as well. So I just don't think that's going to get done in the next 48 hours to give the board enough chance. So if the agenda for the meeting after the 13th isn't completely full, I'd probably request that we get on that.
Which is completely up to you. If you don't think you'll be ready for the next, that's fine. We do, you know, people can always request to be on the next meeting. If they find they're not going to be, you know, finished with what they need, then obviously you can ask for a continuance. The sooner the better, because then we can let folks know. Obviously, we had a couple tonight that let us know tonight. There's not really much we can do about that. But once you commit to 4 weeks out, you know, that's where you are. That's one reason I mentioned it to you.
Well, if the board needs 10 plus days to review like a full updated set, then we're not going to have that. You know, it's going to take us at least 10 days from today to have all that stuff done. So it's really up to you. We'd love to be on the 13th, but we want to make sure that you guys have enough time to review our updated stuff. So I'll leave it to Ms. Louder.
Oh, you don't have to leave it to me, no, I was just going to
You seem
suggest,
eminently
if
confident,
you think you'll have the first pass at the traffic report. Having an opportunity to discuss that at the March 13th meeting could be advantageous. And it's really more that the engineering division cannot accommodate a quick turnaround on plan reviews, particularly where, as you saw, our agendas are quite full. So they're the ones who really need the 10 days. Otherwise, you're coming back here with an unreviewed plan. And I'll include myself in that as well, because I also have to review all of these plans. But if you would like to be continued to the 13th, and if you start closing in on it and you feel like you're not going to have submissions, then we can absolutely, just through the office, through me, you can continue to March 27th.
But why don't we do
That
that?
makes a good point, though. If you're going to have the traffic stuff.
We will.
That can be a meeting in and of itself sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to go all or nothing, if we have something substantive that we can talk about in the next meeting, and leave the rest to it.
So let's stay on the 13th then.
Yes, March
And
13th.
we'll have something to talk about at least. Maybe we'll just make everything outstanding a condition and we can move this thing forward.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't hold my breath, but that's fine.
One option.
Miracles happen, but.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to extend the meeting till the 13th of March.
All right, so we have a motion continued to 7:20 on March 13th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Thank you.
motion carries.
Thank you to the chair and members of the board. Thank you, Ms.
All right,
Louder.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item G, 1693 Shawshene Street, site plan review. Do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
I've known him for years.
Doesn't like it.
That might be their own.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna do it for you.
I can say that.
Oh, yeah? Oh.
7315. Sorry about that. Yeah, just give me a call. We'll talk.
All right, gentlemen, once you get yourself settled, if you state your names for the record, the floor is yours.
Yep. Good evening. David Gianetta. I reside at 37 Spartan Arrow Road in Littleton. I am the owner and CEO of Collective Premium Cannabis. We're currently operational at 2 locations here in the state, one next door in Billerica, and the other is in Littleton. We're here today to discuss site plan review at 1693 Shawshene Street. Here with me is Brian Goudreau from Hancock Associates. Brian and I have worked together on our other projects at our other 2 operational locations. So I'm going to pass this off to Brian. I'm happy to answer any questions pertaining to the operation of the facility, but Brian's going to be best to address the site plan.
Thank you, Dave. So again, for the record, Brian Goudreau with Hancock Associates. We are the land surveyors and civil engineers on this project. So 1693 is an existing contractor's yard that was permitted back in 2011, 2012. Right now, the owner, it's owner occupied, and David would be a tenant for a portion of the existing building. So the project revolves around about 4,600 square feet of the existing building being shifted to cannabis retail, and the balance 3,400 square feet or so maintaining that contractor usage, essentially the back portion of the building. The front portion that has the restriping in the parking lot, new facade, new entrances, some beautification, and then improvements that are germane to the operation, like a small secure receiving area that's fenced in to the northeast corner. To step you through existing conditions, there's a curb cut on Shawshene Street, a parking that is on the front of the property, as well as kind of a fenced-in contractor area that surrounds 3 sides of it. That fence will be eliminated, parking will be striped. There's a total of 40 spaces that are accommodated kind of within the limits of the existing pavement, and the requirement is 36. There are just For the board's kind of information, we did receive 2 letters, one from the planner and one from engineering, and I'll touch base on kind of those comments towards the end of the presentation. Because one comment was made regarding the existing configuration of the parking lot and the site in relation to the 2012 plan, and they're not quite harmonious. So the existing building, let me start. So the existing drainage, right now, the site is serviced by 3 underground systems. There are 2 located in the upper tier of the property, and as you head towards the rear, there's a large gravel kind of contractor laydown area. There's an underground system underneath that graveled area. And then beyond that, there's actually some bordering vegetated wetlands and other jurisdictional areas. What we're doing is we're trying to limit our site improvements to maintain that existing condition. So the 3 drainage systems that exist today, we're basing our improvements such that those don't have to be modified. So basically, the scope of the exterior improvements as shown on the plan is really fit up of the building, fit up of the tenant space, restriping, and a little bit of beautification within the site. Existing utilities obviously service the building and are suitable for the change in use for the front portion. And to circle back to kind of the 2 comment letters that we had from the planner, or starting with the engineer. So in brief summary, there are 2 things I'd like to call your attention to. One, his comment number 1 identified that the existing site does not match the as-built plan in 2014. And in looking at that, there was a small landscape area towards the front of Shawsheen that was reconfigured at some point in time into kind of a parking area. We've looked at our parking calculations, site circulation, the fire department access that was commented further down in his letter, and we feel comfortable that we'll be able to basically recreate that 2012 plan and get the landscaping back to that approved condition and still maintain those 36 parking spaces as well as the fire apparatus turnaround. So obviously we have a little bit of work to do. This is going to be the first of a couple hearings at least, and we will revise our plans to showcase kind of those improvements. In the letter, there are a couple items that had to do with documentation and just notes on the plans. Those will all be accommodated. There was one question about sidewalks, and we're just curious what the board's kind of position is on that. It was recommended for a sidewalk to be constructed along the frontage. We're curious where the board stands on that, if that's going to be a requirement. Pivoting to the planner's letter, there are a couple of items, starting at the top, that a dumpster is required. It was our anticipation that the cannabis retail use would have kind of a secure dumpster or totes on site for their refuse disposal, and that would be located within the screen chain link fence area at the northeastern corner, kind of where that secure pickup and receiving for the building is located. Snow storage areas will be shown on the additional plan. And then really one of the other kind of large comments was with respect to signage. We'll be getting our architects to develop a master signage plan. Right now, if you looked at the renderings, I believe there's on-building signage directing customers to Collective. as well as a pylon sign. The pylon sign was inadvertently shown within the right-of-way. That'll be pulled back, obviously, within property and within those kind of landscape areas that are missing along Shawshene Street. And we anticipate being compliant with the local sign bylaw. That's kind of a high-level review of the site. It is existing. We are trying to limit what we are doing for construction, more focused on tenant space and fit-up and beautification of the property, and then obviously dealing with the comments that we received from engineering and planning. And with that, Dave, is there anything you'd like to touch base on?
No, we also submitted a digital copy. It was, we consider it like a virtual fly-through, if you will. Not sure if you had a chance to see that link, but that'll also be very helpful. You know, you're welcome to it after this hearing. But that takes you around the exterior of the property and also to the interior. I know that's not what we're talking about here, but just to kind of show you more of the high quality, you know, finishes that we intend on doing here at 1693. And as we mentioned, we are operational, 2 locations. So we've gone through this process before, you know, very excited at this opportunity, you know, very happy that Tewksbury's, you know, willing to hear us as an applicant, and, you know, looking forward to hopefully doing business in this town as well.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, feel free to, when you come to the next meeting, if that's something you want to show, that's up to you. We can accommodate that.
Okay.
That's, you know,
Sure.
obviously it's your choice.
Thank you.
We'll start with Mr. Fattalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do know there's a lot of outstanding comments from the engineering department and the town planner's office as well, so I won't take much of your time up, but, you know, I do see a rendering on the front cover here, but I was hoping to get some more of them to see the front, the back, the sides, so that it's all part of the plan, so we can have an idea. One of the questions I had was whether you were taking half of the building up front or the entire front of the building, but you're taking the entire front of the building, correct?
So it's actually, when you're looking at the front of the building, it would be technically the left-hand side.
Okay.
There are 3 existing contractor bays.
Okay.
All of which we will enclose with storefront glass and glass door entrances.
Okay.
Running along that left-hand side. So MDR Construction will still maintain
On the right side?
that front right-hand side.
Okay.
As they currently are.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've been by the building, not in the building, but I know where they are, but, yeah, with that, I mean, I know it's, you heard, we'll probably be looking for a traffic study as well at the location. I mean, we're gonna be probably asking every site that comes in, that's looking for a permit or get by us for a engineer, for a traffic study, because it's new to town. And so I think, and you can probably verify that, is it a very well trafficked area, or very lot of cars coming in and out on a regular basis?
Yeah, so our Billerica location is a great example, actually. We're right on Republic Road, corner of Treble Cove Road. We abut the prison. We're across the street from the gas station. It's a pretty high-traffic area. We have 47 parking spaces there, 2 of which are handicap. And, you know, what we noticed, and we're coming up on exactly 1 year next week, actually.
Okay.
We noticed when we first started, when we first opened, we'll call it those first 2-3 weeks, we were looking at maybe 60, 70 customers a day. Gradually, that increases, right? But you wouldn't know that there's even traffic, because the average ticket time is about 4 minutes. And reason that is, and what I mean by ticket time, is the average time that a customer, from the time they pull in to the time they're pulling back out, is about 4 minutes. And I say that because about 65% of our transactions are actually online. The orders are placed online. And so that means that we're actually preparing their order ahead of time. So it's similar to like a mobile pickup at Dunkin' Donuts. The difference there is they can't just come and pick it up. They have to show ID at certain checkpoints. But the point I'm trying to make here is it's such a quick turnaround. And at least in Littleton, we're open 12 hours a day. Billerica, there's sometimes we're open 14 hours a day. You spread that out over the course of the day, there's really there's no traffic backup.
No.
But if it's required, we're totally open to it. It's something we're familiar with, is, producing a traffic study.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right, we'll go to Mr. Champlin.
I guess on our end, it's probably a little bit repetitive, but our previous applicant had a lot of renderings and whatnot. Will you be conducting a lot of the same security measures, lighting, cameras, all of that?
Yes.
Which, as I understand, a lot of that is part of the process for being certified for this.
Yes, it's required by the Cannabis Control Commission, and upon fitting out the space and after receiving a building permit, we actually have to submit a drawing and a narrative of our security plan to the Cannabis Control Commission. So they have to sign off on that, so to speak, before we can even start fitting out the space. It's called an architectural review. And so part of that process is to provide them with security renderings, show them everywhere we have an access control on a door, anywhere we have a camera, our burglar system, where all our motion sensors, et cetera. So yes, we have to provide all of that as a requirement. It has to be approved first before we can actually start fitting out the space. Then after that, we go through a lengthy process. It's considered the post-provisional license inspection. It's a pretty thorough inspection that the Cannabis Control Commission has us go through, where we walk them through the facility as if they're a customer, and then we take them into the back of house areas where customers are not allowed, and we show them, all of the different security measures that we take, as well as the physical, security personnel that we have on duty on any given shift.
Okay. I had another question, but you kind of went a little longer than I needed on that one, so if I think of it again, I'll wait till after my colleagues have asked their questions.
Thank you.
All set?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can, if you think of it, don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you.
Mr. Duffy?
Thank you. I guess I'm just not real clear from what I'm reading here. Is MDR vacating the building and you're taking the whole building? or-
No, so,
So you're taking the back section of the building?
yeah, it would be considered I would consider it the left-hand side, yep, from there, and then it goes back this way into the building. So, yeah, why don't I go up?
Just grab the mic if you're going to talk. Thank you.
All right, so currently there are, so as we approach here, there are 3 bays, 1, 2, 3 bays. We are going to actually occupy 2 bays, so it's really this section here. So here's Shawshene Street. You would pull in and around. Our entrance would be approximately right here. And we would occupy these 2 bays. There would also be a mezzanine up on the 2nd level that we would use for office space and a conference room. But yeah, to answer your question, it would be, as you come in off Shawshene Street, it would be considered, I guess, the left-hand side. And it would be this portion right in here. So
All the way from left to right, all the way to the other side of the building?
yes, from this portion here, all the way to the back side of that building.
Okay.
Yep.
So basically, MDR is just going to be using the front section of the building as office space?
What their existing use is the front portion of the building. It cuts off at about right here. And they're currently using the single level space, and then they go up a set of stairs in the 2nd level space. And then they're using 1 contractor bay. What we're proposing is relocating their door to this back section here, or as you approach it from the street, the right-hand side.
So the rendering shows 3 openings there. You're only going to be in the back 2, basically.
That's right.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so they're still going to be bringing, I guess according to your rendering, they would be bringing truck traffic in through that garage door opening?
Not as frequent. Mr. Ciccone purchased a property in Andover, and my understanding, it's a farm property, and my understanding is he's going to be storing a lot of his vehicles, trucks, tractors on that lot and operating out of that lot.
But on the interim, you're thinking that you want any traffic that might still be coming there, any truck traffic, in other words, to access that garage bay.
It's going to be on this opposite side of where our customers are going to likely park along this side here and along this, again, left-hand side as you approach. Mr. Ciccone intends on using, I believe, 6 spaces is really all he said he needed anyway, up at the front.
And there was an area there in the back that was pervious as part of the drainage system. Maybe you can tell me, I know that there is some of that's going to remain and some of that's going to be paved. I guess there's going to be a net reduction in impervious
Correct. So
surface.
in terms of drainage, basically the entire paved area, there's a series of catch basins. There's a low spot here and there's a low spot down in here that collects all the water plus the roof. And there's an underground infiltration system here behind the building and here along the side of the building. Those two infiltration systems discharge to a large detention system down in the gravel contractor's yard, if you will. So our net impervious number is a reduction over what's there today. We need to essentially square up some of our parking spaces so we can meet our 18.5 feet, 24-foot drive out and march it towards the building. So there's inches of pavement that's along this property line here that we're going to be increasing, but we're also going to be decreasing impervious by cutting into landscape islands here. So all the existing drainage is going to be maintained, existing impervious is going to go down very slightly, and then the area in the back that is currently the contractor's yard will maintain as its existing condition. It's going to be used how it is being used.
And the plan is for
today.
that contractor's yard to eventually not be there.
That's what Mr. Ciccone had suggested. He looks at this as like a 2-3 year plan for himself, and then he's going to retire, he said.
I also see some of your impervious surfaces that you're creating along Shawshene Street is where I would like to see concrete sidewalks installed in front of that area. And I know that there's, it goes to empty space on either end, but eventually these sidewalks in Tewksbury over the years have been, very successfully connected. So I would like to see that. So I think that front rendering should show that. And I read something about the pedestal sign isn't allowed on the town right away there, so that's going to have to be addressed as well, right? I'm sure you're aware of all that.
Yep.
And those are things that you're working on. So, but let's think about the sidewalk, and what is going to be the plan when the owner does retire? Are you guys going to, I'm just curious, are you going to take over the rest of the building, do you think, or?
I mean, at this time, it's really hard to determine what that plan's going to look like and what the use would be to us, if any. As it is, we're taking over about 4,600 square feet. Our Bill Rickett building is 3,250 square feet, and we operate perfectly fine there. Littleton is about 4,600 square feet. We operate just fine there. So to need that extra space, it's very hard at this time to tell. Yes, I couldn't really even comment on that. But for all we know, he may want to put another office tenant in there.
Now, is he going to retain ownership, or?
Yeah, he owns the building.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an option built in our lease if we so, choose to approach him. It would just be a market price at that time, and if he would like to sell. But we don't intend on purchasing the building right away.
So, in my opinion, that's just a little bit of a wild card out there. So there's a whole bunch of things that could happen in the next 2 or 3 years there. And I was just wondering if that was something that you guys could give a little thought to, as to, the couple of 2 or 3 different scenarios that might shake out there,
Sure, yeah.
Because, it'd be, to have your retail space, up the left side of the building, and then all of a sudden a vacancy in the front there, just something you might want to give some thought to, but maybe address
Yeah,
at a later date.
Absolutely, and yeah, I can have that further discussion with Mr. Saccone too, as to what his future plans are, because he may have plans already for that we haven't discussed. We just don't know exactly if we would need the space as of this time now.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Yep, thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Mr. Vice
Is
Chairman?
everybody gone? Is everybody already gone? Okay. so-
The only question I have for you is, because you've done a great job on explaining your circumstances and what you're going to do, and I was wondering what you were going to do with the rest of the building, because I could figure out, the way it was laid out, that you're not going to have that entire item for yourself, and neither would he, Mr. Saccone. My question to you is if you could give Alex your addresses in Littleton and Billerica. Maybe she has them already.
Absolutely.
I'd like to visit it, that's all.
Yeah, oh, that'd be great.
I mean, you'll never know I'm there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, we'd be happy to give you a private tour, really. And I offered that to the town manager as well. I had the opportunity to bump into him when we submitted our application to the select board. And, I offered the same, invitation to him as well, and I really mean it. We're happy to take any officials through, show them our process.
Sure.
That's actually where I met Mr. Saccone.
Oh, really?
My first meeting with him was, I invited him out to the Billerica location.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it was more comparable of a location, and took him through. He was pretty impressed, had never been through, even on the customer side, but on back of house, showing how we store product and, really all our processes and how that would work. So, but yeah, happy to extend the opportunity to anybody or invite to anybody, really.
Well, that's good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
My apologies, I had to step out for a moment. If you've already answered this question, I won't make you answer it again, I'll get it from the minutes. But on the parking, because this occurred to me, because this one actually will have two businesses right away. Probably should have asked this question on the other one, because there could potentially be two businesses at some point. Obviously, the parking is built based on what the uses are and how many spaces kind of go to both. I mean, it's counted as one whole, but is there a plan for how you'll divvy up the parking?
Yes.
More specifically, for the contractors, sort of having employee parking someplace so that they're not over closest to where your customers should be, so they're not traipsing around the entire building unnecessarily. Is there a plan for that?
Absolutely. There's the chart, the parking chart indicates total spaces, how they would be allocated based on the parking bylaw, based on the types of space within the building. And so, Brian, if you could just give the details on that.
So on the first sheet, on the title sheet, it shows the breakdown between the two tenant spaces. So the cannabis establishment is 24 spaces, and the contractors is 13. And so we had calculated at 37. Staff had calculated at 36, regardless, that it's basically 24 and 13. The 24 spaces are on the collective facing side. So they're basically broken out by use, right? You have separate doors, separate entrances, and essentially separate parking areas for these two tenants.
So, before you get too far, that's what I'm asking though, like, I get that you've got it broken out by use, that's fine. What I mean is, like, on the ground. Is there
Signage.
gonna be some sort of indication to, have the parking broken up in that way to try and keep, business to business kind of together? If I may,
Yes, absolutely, and we could indicate that through signage, in the ground signage. It's in both of our best interests, ourselves and MDR Construction, to isolate his parking as you pull into the lot to the right. It's just closer to his door. It's funny, if you do ever visit our 537 Great Road Littleton location, it's almost identical. We share the space with our landlord, and he runs his own business out of his space. We run ours out of ours, and it's set up very similar to this. We didn't end up having to put signage in the ground, not to say we wouldn't here, but, just the way that it works out anyway, because they use their front entrance very similar to MDR. We have to have our customers kind of drive around the side of the building, very similar to what our proposal is here. And it just naturally works out well. His employees will park closer to his door, and our customers will park around the corner. Also, to the point about security, we will have somebody outside. They're not a parking attendant per se, but they do help assist with that direction with traffic and parking. To your point, we're happy to put signage in there and just isolate and dedicate those spaces to MDR so that the balance would go to us. And, for whatever it's worth, I know that Mr. Ciccone had suggested to me, he really only needs 6 parking spaces, even though he would have 13. He only needs 6.
Yeah, I mean, I could see maybe an internal side, where you see an island.
Yep.
That's,
The new
that's kind
island
of
at
the corner
the
of the
front.
building.
Yep.
And giving your,
Sure.
you may not even need one that goes both ways. You might just need one that says where your folks are.
I like that idea.
They're the ones most likely to be coming in and, not a one-time visitor, obviously, I'm sure you'd like them to be
Let's hope
multi-time
not.
visitors. But their first time.
Yeah.
Having them know to go to the left and
Yeah.
not find themselves doing the three-point turn in the wrong parking lot might just, make for flow.
Yeah.
And better neighbors.
At our Littleton location, we did that exactly. On the corner of the lot, we have our sign that says Collective Premium Cannabis with a big arrow underneath it, like a rider, that points into the lot, so they don't get lost in the industrial park that we're in.
Makes sense.
So, thank you.
So with that, I'll open up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this one? Going once, twice. All right, right back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board at this time?
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman, if I could, or a question to the owner. So could you give me a time frame from the time you get select board approval here until you finally get approved by the Cannabis Control Commission?
Yep. So.
How much time frame?
So from the time we sign an HCA, a host community agreement with the select board.
Yep.
We're likely looking at about, I'd figure 12 months. And that's because we're existing. So anything new construction, you're probably 2 years.
Okay.
And it's frustrating to us, as it is, I'm sure, to the town. You go through this whole process and all this anguish, and you finally get here, and then it takes that long. And it's because the hoops we have to jump through as an owner it's incredible.
Sure.
It's not just as simple as, fit out the space and, get it ready to go, get signed off by the building department. From the time we get our occupancy from building department, we're probably 4 months, 5 months. Because the Cannabis Control Commission only meets once a month. So, we're very restricted to that, and they've got a backlog too of other inspections, so you just cross your fingers and
Sure.
hope to get in faster.
Well, so the reason I asked you that question was, the ordinance that we have in Tewksbury, which can probably be changed as we go along, is they'll give you a 6-month window from the time they approve your host community agreement. They want you to have it done in 6 months, and you guys are at the mercy of the state.
Totally.
Which you've just confirmed that it takes about a year, so.
Yeah, it's impossible.
We have some work here to do, I think, on our end from the select board
That's
issue,
okay,
but.
yeah.
And I heard that from another potential applicant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, we'll see, I
Yeah,
guess, but.
we went, in my opinion, we went as fast as one could go in Littleton. Existing building, very similar to this situation. We fit out in 5 months. From time we got our permit to time we got occupancy, we
Yeah.
fit out in 5 months, which we were flying. And luckily, we were fitting out through the summer. But then, the Cannabis Control Commission decided in December that they weren't going to have a meeting that month, even though they meet once a month.
Yeah.
So it's like, not only do they meet once a month, then they skip that month.
Yeah.
And it just pushes you on and on. So we didn't open until March 6th, even though we had a occupancy mid-November.
Yeah.
So,
I told that to somebody in the administration here, that I think we're tying the hands of the applicants that are coming in with that 6-month provision, but like I said, it can be changed, and I'm sure it will be, because you guys will probably make sure of that, because of the time frame involved.
yeah,
So,
thank you.
but thanks for the explanation.
You're welcome, thank you.
All right, as to, would it be March 13th?
Please.
So we have a motion to continue this to 7:25 on March 13th.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
All right, that brings us to agenda item H, which is 770 Main Street. This is continued from our last meeting.
Oh, did I mix my stuff up with yours here? No. No, I was putting my stuff over there, my bad. Mine's got these ones in the corner there. Yeah. Sorry about that, chief.
If you want more material, then you can.
I gave you.
Once you're settled, if you just give your name for the record, the floor is yours.
Ben Osgood, Ranger Engineering Group.
Oh, yeah, that's right, this continues. So go ahead.
Continues, right. So we've gone through the engineering review. We have a couple really minor comments left. I think we've worked through all the major issues, and I think we'd be asking for approval tonight if the board feels that the minor plan changes are small enough for us to just get back to the board before the decision's issued.
Right. Well, it's not so much that, it's more, at least for our point of view, if we do that, then it's really becomes an issue between you and the engineer, because what we'll do is, if that's what we end up doing, we'll condition it on you providing what the engineering department needs, you know, satisfactory to the town engineer, when we're kind of out of it at that point. So that's sort of your choice, if that's where we go. Our process is done, it becomes between you and the engineering department, okay? All right. So do you have anything you need to present, or are you good?
I don't, it's late. I know everybody had a lot of questions about it before. We went through it. I'm happy to answer more questions, but it hasn't changed since the original.
All right, so we'll start with Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to meet you. Somehow I don't think I met you before. I was not here at a meeting.
That was the one meeting I was here.
Yeah, right. I'll make it the easy one. The stop sign. The stop sign was mentioned. It shows on the plan, but it's not, no, I'm sorry. It didn't show on the first two sets of plans. But now it's on the latest plan, but I don't think it's shown on the ground. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Meaning it's not shown on the plan here?
Yes.
I don't know that it is. I think we added a detail, but.
Because they talked about it should be, where it should be.
Right. Right, we talked about it with engineering, and we can certainly make that a condition that a stop sign's added to the
You
plan.
note that, you're gonna note that down and you'll
Yep.
put that on there. Okay, fine. There was something else that I had. Jonathan, did you remember what you thought?
I did. But since it was being continued, I can.
That's right, because I just forgot what I had. I know what it was. Thank you. I had a question today, because one of the thoughts was that waivers was the 10-foot setback from the parking lot to the lot line. I asked Alex if she would do me a favor and look at the next door neighbor, which is the credit union.
Right.
And not only don't they have 10 feet, but they only have a couple of feet, because when they put their building in, and I thought of it after I went to look at the site again today, they had to raise the whole site for septic.
Right.
Because after a fashion, they went on sewer, but now originally it was on septic, so they had to raise, not to be redundant, raise the entire site. So they had to put a retaining wall on the right-hand side, as you probably saw when you did your engineering, on the right-hand side of the credit union.
Right.
That took up probably 2 or 3 feet of the 5 feet of space that they had after their parking, so they only have 2 feet. But, so that answered a lot of questions for me, and Alex and I had a nice conversation about that, and it's interesting how that worked out.
I actually, after the last hearing, I was speaking with the owner, and when they did the credit union, they put the wall on the line on purpose so that it could be used for this property. That wall is actually right over our property, so we will fill up against it a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And they did that because they didn't want to end up having 2 walls. They knew that this property would need some sort of walls, and we have one on the right side.
Save me money. Okay, Louis.
So.
You want to get up here and start? No, just in case you have to.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know how to do this. Done it before. All right, so you were aware of that, and so...
Yeah,
If you just state your name for the record. sir.
Louis Kachafi, 41 Chandler Street.
Thank you.
Bunky and Pete came over, they said, we want to put a wall here, a retaining wall. We want to keep it back a foot. I said, it's fine with me if you put it on the lot line, because I can see someday my lot being raised, elevated. And they said, yeah, fine, so they put it on the lot line, so now we can go right up to it.
Yep. And it'll never fall over.
No.
It's equal, balanced.
Very good. Thank you, Lou. Thank you. I'm all set.
Mr. Fratelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Osgood, I believe, right? Correct?
Yes.
So, if you recall, at one of our first meetings, I was concerned about the waiver you wanted for the 5-foot line, 5-foot parking. So, you never changed that, obviously, in the plans, because I still see it here today. So, I have a problem with that, and so, before I go into my problem, I'm gonna ask you, the process of the applicants coming into the school is they park their car, I'm guessing, they get out of their car with their children and they walk to the facility. There's no sidewalks or anything to get to the building, right?
Right.
So they're gonna be walking in the parking lot or wherever they park to the facility. So the concern I have is the fact that I'm not in favor of the 5-foot parking lot, because that's gonna make the building that much bigger than it probably should be, because you're not allowing enough parking with a 10-foot setback versus a 5-foot setback. And I'm concerned myself, as a parent and as a board member here, the fact that the possibility may come about where people are gonna be trying to get into the daycare center that's gonna occupy, what, 187 kids? Is that correct?
That's the maximum capacity.
Maximum? Okay. So if that is the case, that possibly traffic could be backing up onto Main Street, trying to get into the parking lot with children exiting their building and walking to the school. So we had that problem on Pleasant Street, which some of my colleagues probably know now, and we resolved that with a lot of work by this board to allow the parking to not exist on Main Street, I'm on Pleasant Street anymore. So now they have enough space to go around the building and come about. So with that said, I have a problem with the fact that you're not going to comply with the zoning and allow to do a smaller building and more parking to allow the people to get into the property. Because all it's going to take is one person coming out of their car with their child, and the person that's coming in the parking lot is going to stop, hopefully, and back people up from coming in off of Main Street. You know, there's an issue there with the intersection across the street as well. So, you know, there's no way to get around. There's no decel lane that's coming into your property that it's going to possibly be backing up. Now, we're talking about 180, even 170 kids. It's what, 20, 25 kids a classroom. We're talking 6 or 7 classrooms of children.
Right.
So I have that concern with allowing you to have that bigger building and not having the parking you're required to have there. So even though, let me finish, even though next door, if the parking lot is not accurate or not correct, which is a wrong, so 2 wrongs don't make it right, So and I'm concerned about that as a parent, as a grandparent, and as a member of the planning board, and for the residents of Tewksbury. So, and it's a 1 acre lot, it's not the biggest lot, I mean, but you can do what you can do there, but I think the building size should be adjusted to allow for more parking, and allowing the setbacks to come in and move back off the street a little bit, so. And my colleagues know about the issue on Pleasant Street, we've all dealt with it in the past, so, so that's my biggest, I'm not against the concept of the school, you know, and what you've done to get to this point, but that process, because it's not a situation you drive up to the front door, you drop your kid off and you go, like some of the boys' clubs you come to, there's people there taking the kids and they go.
Right.
I'm sure it's gonna be a situation where the parents get out of the car, walk to the school with their child in the parking lot, you know, and it's gonna slow down the whole process. So, so that's my problem, and I'm gonna have a hard time voting for this permit under those conditions. So, just so you know, I don't know if you have any comments about it, but.
Yep. So we did a parking analysis, which we submitted and the engineering department reviewed, you know, based on like, ITE, International Traffic Engineers data. And they came out with about 37 parking spaces is what's required.
Right.
The zoning is 42. We have asked for a waiver to add some snow storage. So I think we have plenty of parking for the facility. I've been to a couple of these, and the parking lots haven't been full. I've been at various times a day. There's one, you know, in Tewksbury here, there's one in Billerica. The one in Billerica, there were about 10 cars. I was there at 10 in the morning, so it must have been everybody had been dropped off. So I think the parking is appropriate. We could eliminate 2 spaces and maintain 10 feet on the right side of the, and actually on both sides of the lot. I mean, all we need to do is eliminate 2. I'd have to add a couple back in for my, you know, where I had snow storage, but I'll be giving more room. So it is possible without even changing the size of the building. You know, we can manipulate it a little bit and change it. It may affect possibly the occupancy rate. We may just have to take a smaller occupancy rate. It's 1 space for every 8 students, I believe. So, you know, if I get rid of 2 spaces, I can get rid of 16 students and, you know, keep the building essentially the same. So the building is a template. I know they don't want to go and play with that, and so I'll have to find out if possibly restricting them.
So I hope you can see my concern about people coming into the building with the children getting out of their cars and going. You know, what may fit on paper may not fit when you get to the site. And once we get to the site and the building is fit and set, then we're not changing that building too much because of the, you know, when we run into a parking problem with people parking on Main Street for some reason. You know, now we have, Main Street's bad enough as it is, whether you know it or not.
You don't want to be parking on Main Street. I'm in total agreement with that.
You know, it's the backing up process that's going to back people up. And it doesn't take a lot in that parking lot area to affect that, so.
Well, that was one reason the engineering department felt those 2 spaces on the right side, it would be better to eliminate them for snow storage, just because it would prevent that conflict, that backing out. They didn't think it was gonna be a good idea, so. But, you know, they're 24-foot aisleways. I'm sure you're gonna get a conflict here and there. I think there's probably enough for 3 cars to park. You know, if somebody is coming out of that right-hand row, there'd be three spaces for cars to stack while they waited. You know, again,
Three's not a lot of cars. But, I mean,
No, I know, but if
I don't want to be bickering with you. I'll let my colleagues speak, but it's just in my opinion. Go ahead.
Mr. Duffy. Yeah, I mean, I initially did not, and I still don't have a problem with the waiver going from the 10 to the 5 feet, but I definitely am hearing the concerns of my colleague here, Mr. Fatalia. You know, when the students are when the kids are dropped off, I mean, do they, you know, the hours of the school are 7 to 5:30 or whatever. I mean, do they all come in a crush at 7 o'clock, or?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we've all dropped our kids off at the daycare. There's a baby room, and they may come in at 9 o'clock, you know, infants. Some of them come in early, some people, I know when my kids used to go and my wife worked there, when they were there, I mean, they had people there at 6 in the morning dropping off kids, and there were kids getting dropped off at 9, picked up at noon. I think it's very variable. I don't think it's like elementary school where the bell rings and they're all in their seats. I think it's spread out over time, and I think the traffic numbers, you know, reflect that.
Does the school have any kind of a, you know, kind of like a drop-off pickup schedule, or?
I don't know. I can find out.
Mr. Duffy, I don't think it's a question of dropping off. I think parents have to bring their children into the school themselves and not just drop off at a
Well, a lot of times
prescribed
they just,
location.
I know my wife is a director of a preschool, and I know they just drop them off in the front lobby. The parents aren't walking the kids into their classrooms
Right.
generally, I don't believe.
No, I think
it's a quick drop-off, you know.
I think the parent, nobody's allowed past the
Yeah, past the
entranceway.
front
They say
lobby.
they don't have, let you wander around the school anymore.
But even still, for, you know, 189 kids,
Yeah.
that's still a lot of drop-offs, a lot of pickups every day. I share Mr. Fatalia's concerns about the number of students in the building.
What's that?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman?
So let's talk about parking. And forgive me, I wanted to ask, I did see a number of comments regarding both the fire department and the garbage pickup, that they were concerned about turning radiuses, interfering with parked cars, spaces, the curb, crossing the double line, going back out onto Main Street. I know some stuff came out last minute. Was any of that addressed, or are those concerns still need to be resolved?
The parking, the turning radius show that the truck does not leave the aisles. The garbage truck has to back up to get in, but they do not cross over parking spaces in order to, you know, go through the site. The AutoCAD, it's sometimes tricky to use. We've adjusted it. You know, and it technically, I think it meets all the requirements. Apparently, the fire department has a requirement that before the curbing is put down, that they come down and make sure the truck can make the maneuvers properly. I don't know at that point how you would adjust things, if they, you know, maybe you can move some islands or something, cut off some island edges, you know, we're talking inches, so it may be something that you'd have to make an adjustment in the field when you're constructing it, but technically everything works, it's tight.
I mean, my follow-up would be, and I'm inclined to, with the information presented, allow for the waiver for the 5 feet of setback on the credit union side, but you have a different neighbor on the other side who has appeared before us. I'm not inclined to grant the 5 feet on that. You said you could take out 2 spaces to create that buffer over there, but in doing that, would that impact even further the tightness of?
I don't know, I mean, it's a concern that I do have, if you make it so, you know, the site so narrow that the truck can't turn around, now, you know, you have a problem.
So I think you may end up losing 4 spaces. You'd have to take 2 from the center island area and then 2, and basically I think we just are creating this sort of snowball effect of trying to mitigate other issues because of the parking, and one issue is going to create another issue, which can only be resolved by eliminating more parking, and I guess basically I'm just feeling like this just isn't really working for me, the circulation of it and whatnot. You know, and again, like I am looking at your AutoCADs here, and yeah, we are nipping the corners of those curbs, and, you know, in case of a fire, I'm not sure our first responders are gonna be super careful coming into the site to perform a rescue. You know, I'm not sure, obviously I leave that to the fire chief to determine whether or not the curbing is suitable, but I'm not inclined to rule in favor of this at this time with these concerns. I think it needs some more work to deal with the various concerns regarding the parking lot. Again, a lot of contradictory forces all fighting for their share of the space. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fowler, did you have something?
Yeah, one thing. I have a question for you, sir. An engineering question. I understand the idea of coming around with the AutoCAD. You know, hopefully you make it work. If it works on paper, will it work in real life? Is it doable, instead of having, in the island, instead of having two islands either side of the parking spaces there, but to put a rumble strip, so that if you did have something coming in there, it wasn't a car, you'd have the delineation by the rumble strip, the delineation by the parking spaces, but instead of a curb,
Right,
you'd have a rumble strip.
right.
So that if someone had to come in there because of snow, not enough room to, in fact, when you're plowing, it would be easier if you put a rumble strip in there instead of a curb.
Yeah,
Curved island.
it's definitely possible to do that. We do have, the parking lot lighting is in those islands, but they
Right.
can just be independent. You
Yeah.
put them on a high pedestal so they don't get bumped. And then we do have a fire hydrant in one location.
Yep.
So we may have to put curb around the fire hydrant, but, you know,
Or a bollard.
right, we put bollards on it anyways, but,
Right.
you know, if we can work around those issues, and a rumple strip would
It's
work.
just something to think of. All right. I'll leave you with that. Thanks.
Okay. I guess I'm a little confused. We had 41 spaces when you came in last time. We needed 41 spaces. We asked you to take 3 away to make them snow storage. So we knew you were gonna come in, or we should have known, you were gonna come in with less than 41 this time, because we asked you to. So, I mean, I know for at least from that standpoint, you weren't going to make the parking number because we asked you not to, because this setup was better, even though you had the amount you needed before. Maybe if the setback issue was on Main Street itself, that you weren't 5 feet back, I mean, I might have more of an issue, but we've already given an extra buffer for the Main Street portion. I don't know what the 5 feet on either side has to do with traffic in and out, or bumping up to anything at Main Street in the entrance. I mean, I think as you point out, you could lose a couple more spaces, you could reduce the number of suites a little bit, but it's not gonna change drastically, other than you're gonna have a 10-foot setback just because you do, you know what I mean, at that point? Even if it's on one side and not the other, you're gonna lose, it won't be 2 spaces that you have to lose to get 10 feet on one side. You only have to lose the 1 space, except for the island thing may be an issue for the turning radius. That was where you'd lose the others, but you were only gonna lose 2 if you were trying to get in 10 feet on both sides.
Right, but I have to lose them out of that middle area, so.
No, I know, that's the way you're gonna have the problem on the turn radius, but I'm saying, when you were talking about getting in 10 feet, the 10 feet was 1 speed on either side, that was where you were getting the 2 originally. But if you're not having that issue on the retaining wall side, and you might only be talking about it on one side, there's 1 space in that front area by the school you'd have to lose. My thought in that is that losing a space in front of the building seems counterproductive to not having people have to walk through the parking lot with their children. So losing a space in front of the building doesn't, I don't know how that's helpful for that purpose, just to get the 10 feet on the side, to what end? I'm not, you know what I mean? I don't know, because even if you reduce the students to the right number, that one of those students who's still allowed to be there, if you're way in the other end of the parking lot, is walking across the entire parking lot with the parent, because there's one less space in front of the building now. I'm not sure why I would want to do that.
I mean, we do have, if you look at the handicap access area there, it's large, and it only needs to be, I believe it just has to be 8 feet. And we have a large area there for the handicap access, so we may be able to squeeze it down. But I'll take a look at it, we'll see what we can do.
I mean, I think, you've heard from the board, so I think there may be a situation where you are going to have to come down maybe on the total number of students so that your parking number can come down to make some accommodations to this.
Right.
I'm just saying, I'm not necessarily in favor myself of getting you to 10 feet on one side when the loss is going to be a parking space right in front of the building. That doesn't make sense to me. But that's just my view on it. I could see losing some of those spaces in the middle because, making room for the fire engine and the trash pickup, that's just necessary if you do move the sidelines. I wouldn't, in terms of number of students there, even if you stuck with the 5 feet on both sides, I wouldn't necessarily be against the other members' suggestion of getting rid of some spaces in that middle island then. Which would bring your student number down, not necessarily because you're pushing the parking lot in on either side, just because maybe we think the number's a little high.
Right.
And if you're losing those numbers in that, not numbers, if you're losing the space in the middle, it's gonna make it that much easier for the fire apparatus to get
Right.
around, the trash pickup, and, you won't have students walking in some of those spaces. I mean, that's what I would probably suggest. I would say I would be in favor of not getting to the 10 feet on the two sides, but maybe still reducing that middle section, which brings your student number down, which brings your parking number down.
Right.
Coinciding, just because I just think it's better to have that space in front than to lose it just to make that room. Other than that, and I don't remember, but only because I brought it up on the other one, but did we have any conversation about making it a one-way route all the way through?
Yes, we did talk about it would be one way.
Okay, but it's not marked that way on here, that's why I'm asking.
Right, we can add pavement markings on it, but the intent, the way it works, it's gonna be one way. I mean, that's the intent.
Right, but if I'm asking if you'll make it one way, then I need to see it on the ground saying one way. And I'd want to see it on the plans too, because then everybody knows what everybody decided was going to be the case. Obviously, the only exception, I guess, to that rule would be your trash pickup. Because I don't think they can do it the other way unless they do front load.
Right,
They pull it over
actually,
the
yeah,
top.
if they did a back load, they'd.
So, but other than that, but I presume that you're going to set up your trash pickup not in the middle of school hours.
Right.
So I think we'll just set that up to be the case, that way no one gets confused.
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely,
All right.
definitely do it off hours.
All right, other than that, I'm all set with what I have in front of me. Open up to the audience, anyone in the audience with questions, comments, or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, I move this.
Yes, thank you.
This sign here so we can see this young lady.
Hi, my name is Kim Welch. I'm the director of the school next door, Main Street Learning Academy. And we're licensed for 20 students. Currently, we don't have more than 10 students coming in a day. Traffic would be a definite issue because I can tell you right now, I'm there every day at 7:30. And from 7:30 to 8 is when all of our students come, and we're not even at capacity right now. On any given day, currently, we don't have more than 10 children, but 7:30 to 8 a.m. is prime drop-off time for all of those children. So traffic would, with 184 students, if you want to compare it, we, like I said, are only licensed for 20 students. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman, may I ask you a question while you're still there?
Oh, sure.
So is traffic backing up on Main Street?
It is not with us, but if there were 185 students next door to us, for sure. I mean, potentially if there are 2 or 3 of our students coming in at the same time, there is a little bit of a backup. Not a traffic jam, but there's somewhat of a backup.
So one of my concerns, which I did bring up earlier to you, was the fact that if they're coming south on Main Street to go into this facility, all right, and a car's coming north on Main Street and has to wait for a car or two to get in, so now, I mean, they possibly can swing around and go towards the opening of the intersection there of Berlin Ave, whatever it is there, or, you know, possibly, but again, getting in on the left, coming south could be a problem.
crossing
Coming
traffic.
in, yeah, crossing traffic and backing up traffic again, you know, if, you know, we have the numbers you're talking about is a lot of students, I think, so, I mean, again, I voice my concerns.
We've had parents also complain that as they're pulling into our facility, if they put on their directional, sometimes people are like laying on their horns because they don't realize that they're trying to pull in there, and then we hear it in there, and it's just, sometimes can be a little bit crazy. But yeah, at that time in the morning, that's when most of the drop-offs happen for us. And, you know, I've worked in many daycare facilities, and usually there's a cutoff by 9 AM on the, you know, the schools that I've been at. So it isn't drop-off all different times. It's usually pretty early in the morning.
So it's a 7:30 to 9 AM window, would you say? Yeah?
I would say, and that's what we encourage parents to, because that's when most of the stuff is happening in the morning. So obviously, if children have an appointment or something like that, those circumstances, but for the most part, they are dropped off early.
Great.
And we're open 7:30 to 5:30.
Did you have anything else? I'm sorry.
I don't, no.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Lauder, not to put you on the spot, because you have no reason to be able to answer this question,
Try me.
but if you do, I'll be impressed, obviously. The daycare that closed, do you remember what the capacity was for it?
At 14,
basically
the Children of America at
opposite side of the
1497? I don't have the capacity of that, no. I can certainly ask the building commissioner tomorrow,
I'm
though.
curious, just, you know, because, I mean, that one closed, and it's basically this type of facility, but flip-flop to the other side of the street.
Right.
So instead of the left being the problem, it's the right being the problem kind of thing. So I'm just
The other
curious.
ones, they're working on the other one now to reopen.
Yeah,
Okay, but I'm just curious what the.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the
size capacity was
occupant,
in
right.
comparison to
Yeah, I
this.
don't know the occupancy of that, but I can check.
And I don't recall if there was noted issues with them.
Nothing that I can
Backing up
recall.
onto Main Street or anything, so could we check on that? Just to see if anybody calls,
Mm-hmm.
you know, complaints coming in on a similar type site, and if we can get a.
I can check the file.
Numbers, just to see where that was. 'Cause I mean, I think the parking lot there, pretty similar in terms of the shape, if not exactly the same,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
Okay. All right, okay, so.
Question for the applicant, Mr. Chairman. How far are you off the street from the entryway to the end of the parking lot towards the school? Just curious.
From the edge of pavement into the
Yes, from,
parking lot?
yeah, from the width of the 30-foot width of the driveway
Yep.
to the parking lot, rear where you have those, till the end of the handicap spot. How's that?
29 plus 37 plus 34. Parking lot it's 47, 56. It's about 90 feet. 90 feet from the end of the handicap spot out to the edge of the parking lot.
Okay. Good, thank you. All right.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to sum this up as best I can. So I think we're gonna try and get some information on a comp anyways. That's one thing, just so we have an idea of, you know, how we kind of dealt with this before and how it worked in reality. And then, obviously, you have some potential reconfiguring to at least show us. And then, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean we go with that one versus it, but I think we need to see what it looks like with some of the suggestions that were made here that are going to require at least a somewhat reduction in the number in order to fit in what you need. I don't know, I guess I'd ask the members to indicate what they're looking for in terms of The version we asked you to come back with, you originally had 41, you came back with 38 because we asked you to take 3 out. I don't know, I know in my case, I wouldn't necessarily be looking for you to make the exact parking number, because we weren't before, so I don't, you know what I mean? So I don't know, but I don't know how the other members, what they're trying to get you to show them in terms of parking. Does it have to meet the number, even with the ones we asked you to take out, or are we gonna have you put those back in, just to show you can make the number, even though we kind of prefer you didn't use them? So I don't know what the members are looking for.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, so the traffic impact assessment that they had submitted indicated that 37 was an appropriate number. So perhaps, like you said, there already was entertaining an allowance of reducing the parking to accommodate reality versus what the zoning bylaw requires. So perhaps keeping that 37 number in mind when proposing concepts for reconfiguration. And I also wanted to note, based on Mr. Fowler's suggestion to add rumble strips versus curbing, that may indicate that there's a different waiver required. So just kind of keeping that in the members' minds, that when you ask for certain allowances, that would require a waiver from having curbing surrounding landscaped islands or other features to create that separation, so that, even if there are bollards, so that people aren't driving over
I feel like
landscaped
if
areas.
we're asking for some of the spaces in the middle to come out to make room for the fire apparatus, then we're going away from the rumble strips to keep the islands.
Right.
Just with less spaces, because the islands are preferable to the rumble strips. The rumble strips was an accommodation to try and figure out how to make sure that the fire trucks could get through, but if you're shrinking it, but also 37 was the number at that capacity, because that's how many, if he's reducing the students, 37 wouldn't be the number anymore.
Right. There could be a corresponding
Yeah.
reduction if you
Yeah,
were to
that's right.
reduce
So
the capacity
work
for
the number
students.
along the same
Yeah.
percentage.
Same scale.
Yeah, the same percentage, but not, the number wouldn't be the same necessarily. Because if you reduce the students, 37 might be the actual number instead of
Exactly.
the lowered, you know what I mean? So you gotta run the numbers. They told me there would be no math, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
If they reduce, as this gentleman suggested, that area in front of the doorway, he was wondering why it was so wide.
You're talking about handicap, you talking about the handicap section?
Yeah, you don't need them that way, they'll always have to be 8 feet from each side of the handicap. And that's probably about 20,
I believe it's about 15.
okay.
How about a van, how about a handicapped van, is that specialized?
That's what they're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are van accessible spaces. You need to have at least one van accessible space.
Right.
Minimum of 2 spaces, so. We have about 15 there, which wasn't enough for 2 parking spaces. So I know if I move, I can keep the same amount of spaces by taking it from 15 down to 10, and I still meet all the regulations.
Right.
So I don't think I'm gonna lose any out front.
So maybe that's where we need to just try to get some of the clarification
Yeah.
from the board then, before we have you do too much. Is the more important issue to the members trying to get the number of students down? Because you could reduce that by moving the spaces that are in the middle and not necessarily touching the outer spaces. If you're reducing the number of students, you need less parking spaces. You start shrinking that middle area in the middle of the parking lot, and you bring the student number down, which did seem to be a concern that was brought up. Or how important is that 10 feet on the 2 sides to anyone? Or one side to anyone? Because if that's not really something you have to deal with, you don't have to go messing with those spaces in front of the building very much. It's more a matter of probably that middle island section of where you need to lose the spaces and then bring the student number down as a result. So that's what I'm trying to get the clarification, because I don't want to do double the work for no reason, you know what I mean?
So my question, I guess, to you would be, is there any chance of moving the parking lot closer to the building at all? So that when people coming in off of Main Street have a longer road, a longer access to get off the street, to preventing a backup on Main Street and allowing people to get their children from their cars to the building.
All right, then I'm hardly confused then, because they're not non-compliant on the Main Street portion.
Right.
Like they're not 5 feet within Main Street, they're only 5 feet within the sides.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want them to shrink the sides at all then?
Well, I would, to see what happens with the configuration.
Right.
You know?
But you only want the resulting reduction in the building footprint then? That's what you really cared about? Is that right?
Well, I'm concerned about the parents coming in and getting off of Main Street, not having a backup on the Main Street. Even though you may get close to your numbers, what happens if we do the 10 like you're supposed to have, you know, and allow that to go farther in versus where you are now.
Well, if I keep it at 5 and I eliminate 2 spaces in the middle and bring the islands in, my drive aisles now go from 24 feet up to about 29 feet. So now you could argue there's
get
almost a
around.
4-foot space behind the cars for people to walk, you know, you get a lot more room, a lot less conflict. Where if I just eliminate a space and then move it in 5 feet, I'll get a little bit wider aisle, but not, you know, not full 4 feet. It would be more like 2 feet on each side. So, but it does make,
But
it
to
will-
Mr. Fatalia's point though, like, because if we are trying to get you to try and reduce the spaces, which has a resulting reduction in the number of students, is there some sense, since you can't get all the way to 187 anymore, to reducing the footprint of the building, which would allow you to do what Mr. Fatalia suggested, which is simply bring everything in a little more?
that's what I need to find
Okay.
out from, you know, my client.
Okay.
If we have a reduced number of students in the same building, is that something they're willing to live with, or would they rather make it a little bit smaller? Do they have a smaller footprint that they would allow?
So it sounds like there's possibly a couple of versions that
Right.
you can show us when you come back, based on what your clients want, what we're sort of trying to push towards.
Yep.
And then ultimately, we'll have to make a decision of where we feel like everybody can live, I guess. Does that sound right to everyone? Yes? We're good? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so is there any other marching orders that we'd
I'll
like
just
to?
have one more clarification to my concern, right? So in terms of having the setback with the neighbor, if we were to try to achieve that 10-foot setback, remove 2 spaces, right, now we're increasing Mr. Fratelli's concern as far as traffic going back up onto Main Street. And also, you know, or if you're reducing the 2 spaces in order to improve fire apparatus and garbage pickup. So it seems like, if we could solve one, so if you could alleviate Mr. Fratelli's concerns and the concerns of the fire chief and the garbage pickup, then I'd be more inclined to approve the 2 5-foot waivers. Because, you know, you're getting like 3 out of 4, which is better than what Melo passed for.
I got that. I don't know,
Okay.
only one?
Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to make one more question as well, or comment. I don't have a problem with the 5-foot waivers on either side. That's, to me, is kind of a no-brainer, actually. But I do have concerns about, safety concerns about drop-off and pickup. No matter how you slice it, preschools, pickup and drop-off is an enormous part of the day.
Yeah.
With a lot of people and a lot of kids. And I think Children of America, and I'd be looking forward to a little bit of a comparison there. I'm pretty sure you pull in on a roadway into a parking lot and then into their parking lot. You're not accessing that parking lot directly from Main Street. I don't believe, I could be wrong. But if one car gets backed up on Main Street and there's an accident there, we're talking babies here,
Right.
okay?
No, I
And
realize that.
And so that makes me think that, as Mr. Fratelli was kind of alluding to, it's maybe the project is just too big for the parcel. And, you know, let's take a step back and take a look at that and see if something that can address first and foremost those safety concerns, so that those drop-offs and pickups can be done in a safe manner as much as we can possibly.
And I think too, you know, because you have a client who's doing this, maybe if you bring in a little more information from how their operations,
Right.
how they expect their operations to run.
Right.
To give us, to show us, to say, okay, this is how we handle drop-off in times. This is how we make it work. Or, you know, I think that might help us too, because, I mean, in our head, obviously, I think these are all young enough children that they're parking and taking the child out. This isn't pull up to the front and push them out of the car like, you know, like my dad would have done. Right. Just go to school. But, you know, this is park, get out of the car.
He
That's
drove you?
how it works. No,
Yeah.
I was lucky. So, you know, I think that piece may be what we're partly missing too, is in their real
Right.
world experience and their expectation here, because obviously it's in their best interest too to get these students in and out of there in a safe manner, because, you know, if kids are getting clipped in the parking lot, my guess is their business isn't gonna last very long.
Right.
So that's not good for anybody. So, I mean, obviously, they must have some process that they expect to implement here. You know, I think it'd be good to bring it into us, so we have an understanding. If you gotta bring somebody else that's, you know, to explain that, because they live it, that's fine, you know, we'll listen to
No,
whoever comes in.
I need to get some more information from them.
Yeah, I just think it would make everybody, give everybody a little bit of a more comfortable feeling about the process.
Right.
That there is a process, I guess would be the, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, does that
So,
sound
Mr.
right?
Chairman, one other comment is, it almost makes me talk to you about the fact of, why don't you have some sidewalks at the end of the car, on the sides, where people get out of their car and walk to the sidewalk all the way down to the school on both sides, and now they're not having to get out of the car, you know, and come out into the traffic and then walk, which is gonna prevent people from stopping and starting and not wanting to proceed because people are walking, and, you know, and just to be courteous to them and so forth and so on. If you had a walkway on both sides, get out of your car, you walk to the front of the car, and then you walk down the sidewalk. You're not in anyone's, you know, as safety-wise.
Right.
Except for parking in the middle, and then you're on your own, or something like that, you know, so, but then, we're committed with space, so.
So,
I'd like to ask the young lady in the back a question. In your school, do you have some of the teachers outside
We do not.
as monitors?
No.
I've seen that.
I have two, but we're small, so
Yeah.
parents come in with their children, you know.
And you have that turnaround in the back.
Right,
For
we have
driving.
a big parking lot in the back, so we have it one-way entrance, and then
Right.
they pull on the side, we have a window that they wave goodbye to their parents at, and then drive out.
But, thank you. But the point I wanted to get at is, the ones I have seen, they have some of the teachers, whether it's junior, whether it's kindergarten, or first through fourth, or daycare, they'll have the teachers out there as monitors to help the staff, thank you. To help, she's shaking her head, yes.
Yeah.
Help the staff.
We just don't have the
to-
staffing for it, we're just
Yeah.
so small, but at elementary schools, yes,
Yeah.
there's
So that's-
morning staff, but yeah.
Curtails that.
Well, the thing is, there's 10 students there, we have 187 potential students there, which is not.
No, you didn't hear what she said. She's shaking her head, yes. What I was saying
Yes.
is right.
Right. I agree, but again, the numbers were 10 versus
Where's
187.
the 10?
She only has 10 students
No,
in her class.
she's talking about other schools that she has seen,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Yes, see.
right, but we're getting into a little bit of apples and bowling balls when we're talking about first grade. You know, that's a different set, kind of student than someone who's in a diaper that goes to these daycares. So we're talking about a different thing. You know, yeah, exactly, that's what I mean. If they're being carried in, period. So, if they have a process for how they go about their business, bring that to us so we can see what that is and how they go about it, because really, that's the only thing that matters, is how that kind of business works for real. You know what I mean? You know, that's what we're looking at, so. All right, so I think you have, you know, a few things. And then we'll look to continue this to the 13th. Do I have a motion to continue this to 7:30 on March 13th?
So moved.
A motion made, do I have a second? Motion made and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to agenda item I, which as mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, 999 Whipple Road.
Thank you.
They've requested to be continued to our March 13th meeting as well. They are penciled in for 7 PM. So could I have a motion to continue that hearing till 7 PM on the 13th, please? A motion made.
Second.
Second, motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. That brings us to old business. Does anybody have any old business they wish to discuss? Hearing, Did you have old business?
I'm not sure what it falls under of
We'll
the
go with
next.
old
few
business for
items.
now.
I watched the ZBA meeting. They continued the Foster Lane appeal for the paper street and the frontage and all that. But in that meeting, it was mentioned that a letter was sent to the town clerk explaining their position on the property. I was just curious if that had been made accessible to us as well.
It absolutely can be. I can put it in your packets for the next meeting. It was concerning the decision to appeal the land disturbance permit, which is being handled by town council.
Oh, that's why I got, Dave was suing me
Correct.
the other day. I forgot about that.
Me too.
Yes, so town council will be representing the board in that matter. There are a number of moving parts and items that Mr. O'Brien and his attorney have to provide to the town and likewise for the applicant, so,
We will wait to hear from Kevin if we hear from Kevin. How's that?
yep.
All right.
So is that the same thing? Mr. O'Brien said his attorney, not Mr. Plunkett, had
Right.
sent a letter to the town
Right.
stating his claim that he did have access.
Right, so there was a submission made by Mr. O'Brien's attorney, Attorney Borenstein, to the building commissioner for determination, basically, that he did have rights to use Foster Lane. It appears from the chain of title, it's still being examined by town council for applicability, but that's going to involve many more steps, possibly challenging an appeals court decision, which is far out of the realm of any of our boards. And that's going to be something this is ultimately going to have to be handled in court one way or the
The
other.
bottom line is, this is now in the place it belongs. And when I mentioned back when we were talking about it, that we should not have been talking about it, it is now finding its way to the proper robed folks to take a look at, so.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Any new business anyone wishes to discuss? Hearing none. We didn't have any correspondence, so I will take a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion made. Second? Second. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. We will see you on the 13th. Good night.